Hello, how are you? I'm Traquito. Welcome to this video that is geared towards either new players or potentially new players to the mobile game Fate Grand Order. FGO, as we call it, can be played, as I said, via mobile or via emulator on your PC. Honestly, there's a wide variety of ways to start this game, as far as like maybe a pre-farmed account or starting from scratch or what have you, on a wide variety of different servers that you can play on. This is going to be geared towards the global/NA server, so English server. And it's going to be geared towards a completely from scratch account. So this doesn't have any re-rolling in it. I'm not going to try and go for a certain character. I'm not going to start with a bunch of Saint Quartz on there. Saint Quartz is the premium currency. This is just what you would experience and what you would see if you yourself were to download and start the game, right? If you have further questions after this video, feel free to jump into our Discord, ask us, or ask live on stream at twitch.tv/Arquado. The links for those will be in the description below, but without further ado, we're going to get started. So as you can see, this is going to be a brand new account from scratch. We're going to search for the game, we're going to download the game, and then we'll go ahead and get started on it. For the purposes of this video, I'm going to download the game on what is called BlueStacks. It's an emulator. It's how you can play on your PC. There's other emulators that you can use. I don't necessarily recommend one over others. However, you'll probably be playing this on your mobile phone. Either way, you'll go to your store of choice, whether that's Google or Apple or something else, and you'll search for Fate Grand Order. If you are in a location in which it will recommend the global or English server, it'll come up automatically. Otherwise, you'll typically have to use a VPN to get to the other ones. I wouldn't worry about that if I were you. For most people, they'll just go ahead and search Fate Grand Order. You'll hit install. It is not a heavy install at all. Really quick, once you open the game, however, you'll get into this and it will immediately prompt you to download the actual data. So on your phone's storage, you'll need this much, 380 megabytes. It might fluctuate a little bit, but it's typically going to be around this size. Data update. Now that that's done, you'll notice that you have a servant bio right here, a little bit of a description. This is about Calamity Jane. She's one of the more fun 4-star archers in the game. There are 5 different rarities in the game: 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 stars. She's a 4-star. She's what we call limited, which means you can only get her during certain banners in the game. Some can be obtained on all banners. They're what are called general pool. And some can only be obtained from the story banner. Those are called story locked servants. So as it says here, we're going to go ahead and tap the screen. On this screen, which is the one that you'll see every time you log in, it will change based on your progress in the story. Typically, you'll have a friend code or user ID here. This is a brand new account from scratch, so it doesn't have it yet. But at the bottom, you'll usually see that. So we're going to go ahead and tap this. We'll click our country. I'm in the US. I'll confirm that. So right off the bat, it will take you into a little bit of a story text. It's not super pertinent to the overall story of the game. Basically, it's just going to tell you that you're about to enter a training simulation. The battle that you're going to do is a mock battle. It doesn't really count for anything. And from there, you'll go ahead and start into the game itself. The first 4 story chapters are not quite on par with the later ones. Some would argue that even the 5th chapter is not quite there. Once you hit the 6th story chapter in part 1 and then the 7th as well, it really ramps up. You'll get to what's called part 1.5. Those are 4 more story chapters. And then you'll get into part 2, which has been an absolute treat the entire time. So as you see here, it tells you that you'll have 3 servants. Think of the servants as servants of humanity, right? They serve the greater good. That's probably the best way to conceptualize that term. You are called a master. Think of it as a master of magic. The whole master-servant terminology thing can be a little bit off-putting from talking to players in the past. But really, it's not quite what it seems, right? So as you see here, it says Saber, Lancer, Archer. If you're a Pokemon player, then you'll know these as types, right? So think of them as like grass, water, fire type of thing, right? There are lots of different classes in the game. They are still adding classes to the game. The newest one is within a year old, on the Japanese server, which is the most advanced server out of all of them. The North American or global server that this is 2 years behind the Japanese server. However, there are some things that are kind of being integrated early to close the gap between the two as far as gameplay goes. From a story perspective, we are set at 2 years behind them. So we'll go into this simulated battle. And this is a tip screen. You can click through and read a lot of different tips. There's many of them here. Some of them are very upfront and straightforward. Some of them are actually kind of hidden mechanics that you won't learn elsewhere in the game itself. So this is the battle start. All of your battle starts will look like that, where it'll show the enemy, it'll kind of pan across, and then show your servants as well. All right, let's talk about what you see here. At the top, you have a level 50 training golem. It's 100,000 HP. It is a berserker class. It's silver, which means that if it were one of your characters, it would be a 3-star. On the bottom are your servants. The far left is the saber. She's a 5-star, noted by the gold icon. 4 stars also have gold. The lancer is in the middle. Again, 3-star as the silver. And then the bronze archer. Typically, if they are 1 or 2 stars, they will be bronze. There is one exception who technically has no stars, but we won't go into that. That's a little bit of an Easter egg that you'll figure out later on. On their UI, you see the HP, 9,000 plus for the saber, 6,000 plus for the lancer, and 4,000 plus for the archer. On the bottom, you'll also see the levels. I mentioned these already, but something to keep in mind. Levels for your servants are extremely impactful and very important. Levels for the enemy are typically kind of arbitrary. They don't really seem to matter a whole lot. I cannot recall a time in which I really paid attention to the enemy's level, and I couldn't even begin to tell you if that's ever affected the outcome of a battle, right? You'll fight some fairly easy level 100 enemies. You'll fight some fairly difficult lower level enemies. It's more a factor of the debuffs, the buffs, the gimmicks, right? Things like that. So generally speaking, pay attention to your own levels, not so much the enemy. One thing to note, the NP that you see there, the 0% gauge that's below the HP, that stands for Noble Phantasm. Essentially, it's a special attack. For some servants, it doesn't do damage, so it'll heal or clean off debuffs or things like that, right? But for most of them, it deals damage to either a single target, so a single target NP, or to a group of enemies, so an AoE area of effect NP. So now that you've been inundated with the UI information, let's go ahead and hit the attack here as it says. So this is your hand. Think of it as a card game. You have 5 cards in your hand every single time that you start your turn, right? You may not be able to use all of them. There might be something preventing you, a stun, a charm, etc. But generally speaking, you have these cards in your hand. If you have 1 servant on the field, or 2 or 3, it doesn't matter. You will always have 5. Let's talk about each of these cards. On the left is a quick card, the green one. It is there to generate what are called critical stars. Now, I believe in this tutorial, this simulated battle, that you don't generate stars, at least not for the first hit or 2. I'm not sure why they do that, but it is what it is. So generally speaking, going forward, the green card is used to generate stars. It also generates a little bit of your NP gauge, but it also has the lowest attack of the 3 cards. In the middle, the red card is the Buster card. It's used to deal the most damage. It deals the highest damage of the 3 face card types. This doesn't typically generate any NP on its own. Typically, you'll have to have some kind of either special chain going on or a special servant who will help your Buster cards generate NP. But on its own, it deals increased attack compared to the other 2. It does not generate any NP gauge, and it might generate some critical stars depending on the servant. On the right side is the Earth's card, the blue card. This generates the most of your NP gauge. It does not typically generate stars, and it has the middle attack between the 3. So if we base it off of your attack stat, the Arts card does 100% of that, so basically identical to that. And it'll fluctuate depending on some passives and other things that you may not notice about your servant right up front. The Quick card deals 80% of your servant's base attack. The Buster card does, I think, 120% but it's over 100% of your servant's base attack. Now, the order in which we select these cards does matter. Typically speaking, if I were to start the chain with the arts card, then this chain would have the increased amount of NP gain compared to any other combination, right? If I were to start it with a buster card, then this chain would have an increased amount of damage compared to other chains. And if I were to start it with a quick card, the chain might have more stars compared to other chains, right? There are exceptions to that, depending on the servant. So for a lot of servants, the most stars that you'll generate is actually with the quick card last. For a lot of servants, the arts card going first is not the best way to get the NP gauge filled the most. Sometimes it's to have the arts card last. But generally speaking, if you want more NP gauge, start with an arts card. If you want more damage done, start with a red card. And if you want more critical stars done, start with a green card. It's generally not recommended to start with a green card because the amount of stars that you will generate having it go first is not really much of a difference between having that card go last, which we'll talk about next. So I'm going to do a buster, a quick, and an arts card chain to do the most damage possible here. So as you can see, those attacks were kind of slow. There is a fast mode that I would say 99% of players use. Right now, when you start the game, it is in slower mode. It's actually normal speed, but after playing this game for a long enough time, it'll be like slow mode to you, right? So what you saw there was the enemy attack you afterward. Generally speaking, when the enemy attacks, it is a random chance to hit any of your servants. Sometimes it'll hit the saber, sometimes it'll hit the archer. It really depends. For the purposes of what you just saw, though, look at the bottom for the NP gauge. Now, we did a buster, then a quick, and then an arts card. The buster card gave us 0 NP gauge from our lancer. The quick card from our saber gave us 4%, and the arts card gave us some NP gauge as well. When your servants get hit, they gain NP gauge as well. So we may not have gained exactly 4%. I didn't see how much we gained on our saber, but when we took damage, we gained even more NP gauge, right? We didn't gain any NP gauge from our Lancer's Buster card, but when we got attacked, we gained 3%. And the arts card from our archer gave us that amount over there. So you'll gain NP by using arts cards or quick cards, or by taking damage. So we're gonna go ahead and do what it says here. We'll click this button. It will tell us to use 3 specific cards. We talked about having increased effect based off of what card goes first, right? If it's Buster goes first, then it deals increased attack. If it's Arts first, increased NP gain, etc. There's also something to consider about the final card in the chain. So if I start with a Buster card and end with an Arts card, so Buster Quick Arts, I will deal more damage than if I do a Buster, then an Arts, and then a Quick card. The reason is that the first card increases the effect of the other cards based off the first card's color. So what that means is, if I start with a Buster card, then all of the other cards will have increased attack, which we talked about earlier. However, the effect of that increases per card. So, the Buster card obviously will have increased attack because it's Buster. The second card that I choose will have a little bit of increased attack, and then the third card will have a little bit more than that increased attack. Same with arts cards. If I put arts first, I'll obviously start with a little bit of NP gauge right there, but then if I go Buster then Quick, the Quick card will get more NP gain attributed to it from the arts card than the Buster card will, because the Quick card is going third, the Buster card second. The reason this matters is because, as we discussed earlier, Buster cards don't typically generate NP gauge on their own. And so if we start with an arts card, and we know that quick cards also generate some NP gauge, not as much as an arts, but some of it. If we start with an arts card and end with a quick card, then we're going to amplify the NP gain effect of the quick card more so than if we had the quick card going second and the buster card last. Basically, buster cards are so bad at generating NP gauge that if you were to have them go last and have an art card go first, you're probably not going to get much of any, maybe 1 or 2% depending on your servant NP gain from that buster card. That cannot be said for the quick card. So what we're going to do is arts, then buster, and then quick to try to get the most NP gauge that we can. Try to watch the NP gauge, which is the bottom left, which is currently 4%, of our Saber Servant. So you're thinking, what was that? What was that last attack there, Sharkquado? What's going on? Well, your servants will have an extra attack if you use 3 cards from the same servant. It's called a Brave Chain. So what you just saw was 3 cards, all from our Saber Servant. And since we used 3 cards from the same servant, we got an extra attack, right? The extra attack has a lot of attributes of all 3 cards, but it also gains the effect of the first card in the chain. When you have an append skill, so later on you'll get extra skills that you can unlock. One of those extra skills that you can unlock on your servant increases the effectiveness of that extra attack. So it'll hit harder, it'll generate more NP gauge, it might even drop more stars, etc. So generally speaking, when you are trying to deal the most damage and you have 3 cards from the same servant, other buffs, other classes notwithstanding, generally speaking, your highest damage output will be from getting that Brave Chain so that you can have the extra card also in play. All right, so let's go ahead and do what it tells us here and tap this. So what you see here are 3 quick cards. Above them, you see a red word that says effective. That means your enemy is weak against that class, right? So Berserkers, as an enemy, are weak against most classes in the game. Your servants here are Saber, Lancer, and Archer, so they deal increased damage to Berserkers. However, Berserkers are also strong against most classes in the game, which means they deal increased damage to our Saber, our Lancer, and our Archer as well. So we have a quick chain here. This means we should start with 10 stars as a bonus for doing a quick chain. If we were to have 3 arts cards here, we would get 20% NP gauge for all servants involved in that arts chain. And if we were to do a buster chain, so all 3 red cards, then we would get increased attack for that same turn on those face cards. Something to note is that when you do a quick chain, the stars that you generate are not usable until the next turn. When you use a buster chain, it is that same turn that your attack is increased. Additionally, when you use arts chain, the NP gauge that you generate is not applicable to that turn's NP unless you are going for what is called an overcharge effect. An overcharge effect is something we'll cover in a little bit. But basically, it's like your NP has an extra effect with it that scales higher depending on what is called its overcharge. We'll get to that in a little bit, but for now we're going to do this quick chain and see if maybe this tutorial will show off some stars. So there's the 10 we mentioned. So as you saw there, the quick chain gave us 10 stars as a bonus. During this tutorial, it's not giving us stars to drop on the field. I don't know why they do that. They should show that to players right up front, but you know, it's neither here nor there. One other thing, and this is a little bit convoluted language-wise. When it says critical rate up on the next turn, what it really means is you have stars from that turn applied to the next turn. You'll see percentages on those cards over there, and we'll get to that in a second. As we talked about, the buster cards have attack up on that same turn, and the arts cards fill up the NP gauge required for your Noble Phantasm. Now, if we click on this, Again, the first card will impact the other cards. It doesn't go into more detail than that, so that's why we're kind of doing this, right? So what you'll see here is we could do either an Arts quick chain with our Saber to get a Brave chain, have that fourth card, and also generate a decent amount of NP for just our Saber. We could also do an Arts chain for all three servants to try and generate the most NP for all of them, right? The percentage above these cards is your critical rate, let's say. On the far right, our Arts card there has a 30% critical rate. It's a 30% chance to deal a critical hit. Same with the subsequent cards, 20% chance, 20% chance, 20% chance, and a 10% chance. The maximum for all of these is obviously going to be 100%, which means the maximum stars that you can benefit from on your face cards is going to be 50. There are some skills in the game that might influence your star count. Some of them can give you a bunch of stars instantly. Some of them can take away stars to give yourself a different effect, typically a buff right there, right? But generally speaking, the stars you generate from the previous turn will go on to these face cards, and these will be your chance to hit a critical hit. Critical hits deal much more damage than non-critical hits, and there are special buffs that will buff that critical damage even further. So we're going to go ahead and do an Arts chain here just to see all three of them get their NP gauge up. I'll tell you right off the bat, we're not going to use that Archer's NP. The reason we're not going to use it is because he dies. But from this perspective here during the tutorial, that's not important. So we're going to go ahead and start with his, then the Lancer, and then the Saber. So you saw the 20% added in right there. He went from 39 to 50%. He went from 29 to 48 due to a critical hit. And she went up even further because of her critical hit. Now we mentioned critical chances, right? They can go as low as 10, as high as 100. It's not uncommon to miss 90% or 80% critical chances. It's not uncommon to hit 10%. It is completely RNG based, or random number generator based. If you're lucky, you might hit a 10%. If you're unlucky, you might miss a 90%. But they are not necessarily going to be completely reliable unless they're 100%. So if you're looking to score critical hits, just keep in mind, unless it says 100, you have a chance to miss. And I know that sounds kind of obvious, but sometimes we're surprised at the timeliness of those misses, let's say. So it talks about the effect here. Once again, something that we're going to try and accomplish here is our NP. Now, the game artificially filled our NP gauge for the Saber. Again, this is the special attack. We're going to use her NP, which is Excalibur. And then we'll use the quick card from Arash, the Buster card from Ku. That's the quick card from the Archer, and the Buster card from the Lancer. This is the highest damage potential that we can deal with these cards. It is important to note that the first phase card does not affect NP. So, if I were to do Excalibur first, it's a Buster card, so it will influence the attack of the Quick and the Buster cards. However, if I were to use the Buster card first, it will not increase the attack of the NP because it has its own special set of damage calculations. So let's go ahead and start with Excalibur, then the Quick card, and then the Buster card. You will see servants occasionally get animation updates, as we call them. This is a fairly old game as far as mobile games go, but they are still updating animations. They're trying to keep things relevant and up to date. And some of them have honestly developed into fairly aesthetically appealing animations. So let's see one of those. So, the 20% on her NP gauge that you see there, right above where it says level 15 Saber. The reason that happened is because of what's called the extra effect or overcharge effect of her NP. So, Sometimes a servant will NP and they'll recharge their own NP gauge. Sometimes they'll do an NP and it will apply curse damage or defense down. There's a wide variety of different effects that could happen, and they will scale with overcharge. When it comes to her, Artoria, she gains NP gauge, she refills NP gauge after she uses her NP. The more overcharge that you have, the higher that will be. So as you can see here, it goes into more story. This is Foe. Foe will be with you for much of the story. Honestly, at sometimes a comedic relief aspect of the game, sometimes just a cute thing, sometimes very impactful and important from a story perspective. So you'll go through this. As you go through the story, it's a pretty standard format across all events and story chapters, right? So you'll click through. You can read back to see what you missed. You can set it to auto, and it will automatically advance. You can also skip that section if you've already read it before, if you just are not really interested in that. As you go through the story nodes, typically you'll have options on which to select in your responses. Very, very rarely do they ever influence what you're shown or what happens in the story. There's only a few times that I can think of in which it actually alters the dialogue. It does not ever alter the outcome of each story's progression. The stories are standardized. That's a good thing in a lot of ways because you don't really have to stress about which one to pick. You can pick whichever to see the dialogue response that you'd get from it. But on the other hand, obviously, it's a little bit of a hindrance when you do multiple playthroughs. You already know what's going to happen and what's going to be said. So don't worry about which one to pick when you go through these dialogue options. Pick the one that you actually want to pick. I'll go ahead and create this character here. We'll do this. We'll hit OK. You can change your name after the game begins. You can change your gender, and you can change, I believe, your birthday as well. So after the story chapter we just read through there, you'll get to the start of the first what are called singularities. So each larger story chapter is called a singularity in part 1. As you can see here, a lot of the early part of what's called Fuyuki, so this is where you are, Fuyuki at the top right of your screen, is going to be pretty self-contained. It'll tell you where to go. It'll tell you what to do for the first few nodes. Again, we'll talk through some of the more hidden aspects of this. We'll click on this. It says recommended level 1, and it also says that you're going to get a red bone and a Saint Quartz. So that rainbow object right there is called a Saint Quartz. It's the premium currency in this game. AP 2 means it's going to cost you 2 basically stamina. If you look at the bottom left, you have 20 stamina right now. You are level 1. You have 0 Saint Quartz. Next to that, you'll see a different looking rainbow object. It's a pyramid. It's called Saint Quartz Fragment. If you have 7 fragments of a Saint Quartz, you can create a Saint Quartz. You have none of those right now. However, they frequently do what are called start dash campaigns. So when you start, if you play for a certain number of days, usually logging in all in a row, you'll get a bunch of rewards. And honestly, they're really good rewards. So if you do happen to start during one of those start dash campaigns, I would recommend at least sticking it out through that because it tends to be pretty worth it as far as that goes. Next to that, you'll see a present box that is shaking. It says limited time above it. It has an 8 on it. A lot of the things that you'll be given as a reward or things that you'll buy from the event shops, they'll go into that present box. If you do a lottery, so a lottery event in this game is where you get tons of materials, they'll go into that present box. Next to that is a clipboard. It says weekly missions 0 out of 7. It says 1 day left. Today is Saturday. On Sunday, it'll reset and it'll go into a new set of weekly missions. There are also other tabs within that weekly missions clipboard. Some of them are limited. Some of them are event-based. They may pop up. They may go away depending on what's going on. We are approaching the anniversary time of year, so there will be special missions within that clipboard for that. On the left side, you'll see a red and white icon. It's a weird looking logo, perhaps almost bird-esque in shape. Those are your command seals. You have 3 of them. And command seals can be used to either refill your servant's HP, completely charge their NP, or, in the worst of cases, if you have 3 command seals at the ready, you can completely revive your party when you lose a battle. Typically speaking, you won't really use your command seals unless you're in a pinch. That's what they're there for. If you are out of command seals, you can revive your party using Saint Quartz. Typically speaking, you don't really want to use Saint Quartz to revive your party during a battle because, honestly, all the battles are going to be low AP for part 1, and you'll be able to win if you just exit the battle after losing and then kind of retooling your strategy, maybe even raising up your servants or skills or things like that. But for right now, this is section 1. So in this first battle, when you start it up, it doesn't take you to a support screen or anything. It takes you straight into the story node for Fuyuki, right? So again, you'll read through this. I do encourage it. Fuyuki is actually not terrible of a story, especially for an early on story. It helps kind of lay the groundwork. And also a lot of things in Fuyuki, as we have learned, are very important late in the story. So definitely give it the time of day. The first few singularities after that, Septum, Orleans, especially, and then even like Okeanos and London, they have some important things here and there, but the first like major big long-term tidbit doesn't really come in until at the earliest London, in my opinion. So after the story segment there on this very first node, you'll go straight into the battle, and the only servant you have is Mash. Again, it'll give you reminders here and there. I don't know why they do this, but they have artificially decreased what you can do here in combat for your cards, right? So typically, you'll have all 5 cards. I don't really understand why, but they chose to omit those and simply go with 2 cards here. So we'll go with the Buster, the Quick, and then apparently nothing. Those are the stars we mentioned earlier, dropping on attacks. And we're going to go ahead and take use of a skill here. Now, typically, I'd like to use this one right here. It is a defense up and damage cut later on in the story. But right now, this one's nice as well. This is an invincible, and it also increases your NP gauge. So we're going to use this. And because this is a targetable skill, we have to choose who we want to use it on. And so we'll go ahead and click Mash because there's no one else. There's a skill animation. What it's talking about here is the cooldown. Right, so right now you have a 9-turn cooldown on this skill right here. This is a level 1 skill, so the cooldown is at its highest. When that skill hits level 6, the cooldown will go down by 1. And then when it hits level 10, which is the maximum level for a skill, the cooldown will go down by 1 again. So right now, it's a 9-turn cooldown. It will become a 7-turn cooldown when it is at max level. Different skills have different cooldowns. There are some terrible skills that have very long cooldowns, and there are some incredible skills that have very short cooldowns, so it kind of varies. So this is probably the most important thing the game will teach you how to do early on. Battle speed. You're going to notice a massive difference. You'll probably never turn that off again. We're going to go for maximum damage here, so we'll go for Buster, then Arts, and then Arts. So now that we are speed, things are going to go a lot faster, as you can tell. The battle finish screen consists of a few parts. The first one is this. When you have more servants, your bond screen will show those servants, and your bond with them will increase. Right now, it's only Mash, and your bond with her cannot increase due to story reasons, but you'll learn more about that as you go. Eventually, you'll be able to increase her bond as you battle, but that's very deep into part 2. In the meantime, though, her bond with you will increase, and it's tied to the story only. Other servants that you get, their bond will increase as a result of doing battles with them. You'll also go to this screen. It's your Master EXP. Right now, it goes up to 150. That'll change pretty soon. and your Mystic Code EXP. This is the default Mystic Code, and Mystic Code is your outfit. As you level up your EXP, you'll gain more stamina or AP. And as you level up your Mystic Code, the Mystic Code skills that it has will decrease in cooldown. A lot of times when you finish a story node, you'll get drops, right? If you're farming nodes, you look for certain drops here. But as you're playing through story nodes, you're typically going to have standardized drops. This is especially early on true, where I've got 2 1-star pieces of EXP here and 10,000 QP. QP is used to level up skills, ascend servants, level servants, and some other things as well. QP goes up to 2 billion, which sounds like a lot, and it is for early in the game. But for reference, if you have a 5-star servant, taking them from level 1 to level 90 and all of their skills to level 10 will cost you 167 million QP. Now, you only got 10,000 QP from this node. You will get more from later nodes, but the primary source of your QP is going to be from events. A lot of events are locked behind certain progress in the story, so as you can probably start to connect the dots, you want to advance through the story so that you can play events, so that you can get QP, so that you can level your servants more and more. There are some nodes in the story that give you an astronomical amount of QP in the millions. There are even some interludes, one servant interlude in particular, a 4-star combo called Anne and Mary. When you do an interlude for them, they give you 10 million QP, which is pretty nice. From this screen though, if you click this on a certain material that'll appear here, so not EXP or QP, but if you have other materials like leveling or ascension items, and you click display, it may show you how many you have. It'll say held, and then it'll have a number there. Obviously, just starting out, you're not going to have any of those. So we'll hit next. So playing through the story gets you Saint Quartz. Again, this is the premium currency of the game. Typically speaking, you can save up more than enough quartz just by playing through the story, part 1, part 1.5, and part 2, and have lots and lots and lots of rolls on whatever banner that you choose. You don't need any particular character in order to clear the content of the game. You can use a team entirely consistent of free characters that you don't spend any Saint Quartz to get and beat the entire game. It's been done many times before. Or you can use the Saint Quartz as you go. You also get things called tickets. They are gold tickets. Each ticket is worth 3 Saint Quartz, so 1 roll. When you have 30 of these Saint Quartz, you can do what's called a multi. It used to be a 10 roll. It is now a 10 plus 1 roll. So a multi of 30 Saint Quartz will get you 11 servants or craft essences on that roll. You can also get things called command codes from the friend point rolls, and we'll look at those very shortly. But friend point rolls are going to be your best friend early on in the game. On the next screen, it shows you a material drop. This is a relatively recent addition to the NA or global server. And what this means is I got this skill or ascension item right here just from playing the node. It's really nice. It's really, really nice. Because it used to be to get these, you had to farm the actual nodes to get any of them. And now you'll get them as a result of playing the game, which, again, it's really nice, really nice. This is an evil bone. It is a bronze material, which means it's the most common in the game, but you'll also need the most of them. You can think of it as like an inverse scaling. The less rare an item is, the more of it you'll need for servants scaling their skills up and their levels up. The more rare an item is, the less of it you'll need. So don't be duped by the fact that you'll have dozens, if not hundreds, of a bronze item. There are servants who will take quite literally over 100 of a bronze item in order to get their skills up. That's really only some gold servants. It's not a huge concern when you're first starting the game, but it's something to keep in mind. Now that I've done that, you'll see the number on the node that we left. The number up there on that previous node denotes a free quest. It has a 1 on it, which means there's 1 free quest there. When I'm able to play this map at will, after this tutorial aspect, I can actually go back there and do that same battle or something similar to it 3 times over. And when I do that, I will earn 1 Saint Quartz. The free quest mechanism is available throughout the entirety of Part 1, Part 1.5, and Part 2. Anytime you beat a story node in a location, and you move on from somewhere else, after you've beaten the story in that entire chapter especially, you'll be able to go back and do all of the free quests and get even more Saint Quartz. So again, you could probably start to see that the ability to roll on the banners is really not exclusive. It's really not that difficult to get enough rolls on banners. So we'll go into the next story node. As you can see here, still 2 AP, which means 2 stamina. We're only at 19 out of 20 here, but that's going to go up in about 2 or 3 nodes when we level up, and we'll talk about that when we get there. On this one, our enemy class, again, is a saber. We are going to get a bone again, and we're going to get a Saint Quartz once again. A screen that typically pops up before this one and before a splash screen prior to it telling you what chapter you're on and the name of the chapter is the servant support screen. Again, we'll look at that in a little bit, but just know that the order of operations that's going on here is a little bit different than what you'll usually see. All right, so this time the game has given us 3 cards out of the 5 possible from her hand. You'll also notice something else different. Although there's only 1 enemy on the screen this time, there are 2 waves of enemies. So battle at the top, 1 of 2, means you're on the first wave of 2 waves of enemies. For the purposes of part 1, it's going to be 1 enemy, 2 enemies, or 3 enemies though. And typically you'll have either 1 wave, 2 waves, or 3 waves. There are some exceptions, as I said, but they are not quite as common. So we'll go ahead and go through this battle. If you look at the skills here, Allies Defense, this right here, you see this little grayed out arrow? That means that there is an eventual rank up for that skill available later down the line, right? Sometimes that's locked behind certain bond levels for a servant. Sometimes it's locked behind certain levels for the servant or ascensions or all of the above. In MASH's case, they are all locked behind story progression. But what this means is this skill has the potential to improve later on, right? We know about the cooldown. Here we'll talk about the effectiveness here. So increase all allies defense, level 1. This is a level 1 skill, and it lasts for 3 turns. It's a 7-turn cooldown, which means we have 4 turns of what is called downtime. If you watch some of my other servant analysis videos or watch any other videos or read about servants, you may hear the term downtime used about skills. What that means is it's the time between the skill being effective and it's still being on cooldown, and then when it comes off of cooldown. So while it's on cooldown and not effective, it is called downtime. Typically speaking, you're going to want that cooldown to be as low as possible for some of your high tier skills. All of MASH's skills, she'll have 3 eventually, are very premium skills. They're very, very good. And so you'll want those cooldowns as low as you can get them as you play throughout the game. First, let's take a look at the menu before we attack. So you can withdraw from the battle. This doesn't let you because like it's all scripted right now. You can't really lose. Items dropped. Click on this. It will tell you what's been dropped so far. You will know that things have dropped if you see a number next to this treasure chest up here. You can also click on that treasure chest to go straight to the items drop screen. You can click on your command spells to see your options for the command spells. Increase your servant MP by 100% or HP, or at 3 command spells, revive all party members. Again, hold on to these command spells, only use them in emergency situations. On the battle menu, you will also see the volume level. So you can adjust the volume for all aspects of the game, the voices, the sound effects, the background music. You can mute the entirety of the game, right? You'll also see 3 options here: NP speed normal, confirm skill use, and skip enemy fade out. So first, we're going to do some attacks with these enabled at their default, which is what they're on right now. Confirm skill use and skip enemy fade out off. So. Watch the enemy. Slow fade out right there. So now we can go ahead and test that skill confirmation. So right here, I click on that. I hit OK. And her defense goes up. On the battle menu here, if I hit this, confirm skill use off, then this will just activate. Down here are master skills. You can press and hold to find out their effects. This is an evade. Again, this is the default Mystic Code, so what you'll start off with. It's an evade for a turn, which means you will not get hit by most attacks in the game. There are some skills that will penetrate through your evade. This is an attack up. And this is a heal. This is one of the better Mystic Code skills in the game out of all Mystic Code skills because the cooldown is very low for a Mystic Code skill. In fact, you'll be able to get this low enough later on that using this multiple times in a battle is not unheard of. If you wanted to find out the effects of these skills, once they've been used, you can just tap them. If they have not been used, you will have to press and hold and have it show up. Now let's talk about these icons on Mash's screen over here, right? So on her UI, you see a shield and then a different shield with a plus sign on it, right? Click on your character or tap your character, go to status, and you'll be able to see how long these buffs are going to last. Sometimes they are not buffs, sometimes they're a bad thing, or just like a general trait. That's a purple diamond that you'll sometimes see. If they don't have a number here, then they are just permanent. They're going to last the entirety of the battle. However, with these, we know that our defense up is going to last for 3 turns, and our invincible is 1 turn. Invincible is stronger than that evade I showed you from the Mystic Code. One final thing to note about this, as it says on this main screen here. Mash's NP is sealed to start off. We know that from story. But if you scroll down here, you can see a ton of details. I mentioned command codes early on. Again, we'll take a look at those in the friend point rules. These lock signs right here are where you'll see command codes. Going down here, you can change an NP animation speed, right? So right now it's on default, which means it'll match whatever I set the setting to be. Or you can set it to always normal, which means that no matter what my setting is, it will always be in slow mode. And then you can set it to always high, which means no matter what my speed is, it will always play it at a high speed. Down here, these are passive skills. Passive skills. Mash has 2 of them throughout most of the gameplay. Magic Resistance A, which is a certain percentage of debuff resist, and Riding Skill C, which is a certain percentage of quick card effectiveness up. The game does not tell you these percentages on the UI. It should. It does not. You can look on different websites out there that will tell you just how much these values are. Typically, what you'll see in passives are not extremely impactful. There are some very impactful passives. Some of them are debuff immunity to certain effects. Some of them charge your NP per turn, etc., etc. But some of them are marginally impactful. Riding Skill C is one of those marginally impactful ones. And then you'll see on skill 3, this is a event-focused skill. So only during this event, right now, it is the rerun for the Las Vegas summer event. It would increase her attack by 50%, and then it would increase the bond gain for all of your allies, if she's in the party, by 5%. Down here, I mentioned the append skills. So on the append skill here, you have 3 different ones. The second one is always mono-loading or load magical energy. That's always useful for all servants in the game. I can't think of a single one that you would not want to have, no matter how niche or bad they might be, that you would not want to have access to their NP at a faster rate. So if you're able to unlock append skills for a servant, which you won't be able to for quite a while, then I'd say go for it. Unlocking an append skill does not cost you materials. It costs you what are called servant coins. Rule of thumb on servant coins, you get more of them the higher your bond with a servant is, or the more copies you roll of them, either from the friend point or free banner, or from the premium banners, right? This is extra attack. Sometimes it's useful on servants, sometimes it's not. The reason I mentioned this one second instead of the mono-loading one is that, again, the second append is almost always useful. This is situational. There are some servants that this is very impactful for, and some that it just doesn't make any difference, or it's not really a big usage, right? And the third one down here, for all classes except for Berserkers, this is anti-blank attack up. So what that means is you will deal extra damage if you have that third append skill unlocked against the specific class that is mentioned in that append skill. The exception is Berserkers. Because they already deal increased damage to most classes in the game, their third append skill is typically a reduced chance of critical hits against you. So it's critical rate down for a specific class of enemies that you might be fighting as your Berserker. That probably sounds convoluted and not as useful as the other classes' third append skill. That's because you're right. Typically speaking, I just don't recommend the third append skill for berserkers. It's very rarely useful for them. There are some cases, but typically I don't recommend that. So if it's a berserker, you're going to focus on these two in the distant future. If it's all other classes, you can take a look at all three, but once again, it's going to be a long time before you can unlock append skills. So that takes care of this screen. You'll also see something here if we have a craft essence equipped. We'll talk about CEs in just a little bit. So we're going to go ahead and wrap up this battle. So once again, bond screen. Once again, EXP gained and drops. Alright, we'll skip through this. Alright, so now the game is going to give us a little bit more access to some things. We'll click on the menu here, and we're going to go to the tutorial summon. So this is the opening summon of the game. You can see on this screen that it is going to give you right up front 32 Saint Chords. We've already earned 2, so it just gave us 30 for free. You're guaranteed to get 1 4-star servant on this opening banner. You're not guaranteed much of anything else, but you're probably going to get at least 1 useful craft essence and some useful servants as well to help fill out your party. So this is where, if you were a re-roller, you would go up to, you'll hit this button, and then you'll start all over if you don't get what you want, right? Of the servants that are up there, honestly, at this point in the game, they're all useful. None of them are terrible. You can make do with all of them. You can beat the game with all of them. So let the cards fall as they will, I say. But if, again, you are a re-roller, this is where you'll go up to. So hit this button. It'll tell you what you'll go down to. If you are free to play, this number will gradually increase. It will always tell you what you go down to. The free quartz always reduces first. So if I have 100 paid and 100 free, and I do 1 multi, it will say 100 paid and 70 free afterwards. One other thing to note, twice a year, they do something called the GSSR. The GSSR is a guaranteed 5-star roll. It can only be done with paid currency. Now, as far as bargains go, it's actually a pretty good deal, but if you're not going to play the game more than like a casual basis, or you don't really care about it, you don't have to worry about it. You can just skip it. But let's see what we get on this opening roll. So unless you download game data, you'll probably see some loading at the bottom. That doesn't really matter one way or another, but we'll let the rolls go through. So off the bat, you have what's called Awakened Will. You probably won't use this, but what you want to pay attention to are the white bars in the middle. So this one has 3 white bars, which means it's a servant. It's a Saber class servant. And we got Gilles de Rais. He is an arts servant with a non-damaging NP. Next up, another servant. Another Saber. And this is Fergus. He has an AoE damaging NP. Honestly, a pretty good Saber to start the game off with. You'll notice that none of the servant rarities go below silver. So they're all either 3, 4, or 5-star in nature. The same is true for the craft essences. Here's another servant. This one's an archer. And this one is Robin Hood, a very good single target archer who can deal massive amounts of damage if the enemy is poisoned. Another servant coming up. This one's a rider. And it's Medusa. Again, very good for a new account. She has an AoE quick NP. She also has a stun in her kit and a battery as well. So an NP battery. Another servant. This one's a Lancer. And it is Romulus. Romulus is a recently buffed a couple of times, I think. But recently buffed servant who does get better after his buff. But he's pretty good to have as well. So this is a pretty good opening roll, if I'm being honest with you. Another Lancer. Could it be another Romulus? It is indeed. So now I have NP2. Means you have 2 copies of Romulus. You can have up to NP5 of a Servant. Next up, we do have Charles Babbage, AoE caster. He's actually really good if you get him raised up right. But you'll notice the pauses in between rolls vary. And so some of us try to guess, well, this is going to be a Servant, this is going to be a Craft Essence, this is going to be gold, whatever. So this is a gold roll, which is guaranteed to be a 4 or 5 star. It is a Saber, so that's a good sign. And it is Suzuka, that's a very good sign. She's a very good opening Servant to have in the game. After your rolls, they'll talk to you if they're new. Alright, so after that, you'll be able to see above each card if they are new to your account. They will have the new above it. Let's talk about some other things in this UI real quick. You'll see the Servants at the top left, 14 out of 500. Once you hit 500, under normal circumstances, you will not be able to do much in the game. You won't be able to do battles, etc. So you'll have to do something about that. You can, however, continue to roll the premium gacha. The same goes with Craft Essences, 3 out of 500. You won't be able to do any battles unless that number is below 500, but you'll still be able to do some rolls depending on which banner you're on. Command codes, much the same. Something else you'll notice if you look at the Servants, you have a plus 15 on most of them and a plus 30 on Suzuka. So plus 15 denotes the number of coins that you gained for that 3-star Servant. Obviously, we got 2 Romulus there, and so that's plus 30 coins right there. 30 coins is how much we got for Suzuka because she is a non-limited 4-star. She gets slightly less coins, but still 30 is pretty nice. So now we'll click this close screen. So now that we have our Servants and we have some CEs that we could potentially use, we'll go ahead and go back to the menu. We'll click Formation. And on this screen, there's several things to talk through. The party setup is what it wants us to focus on right now, which is totally fine. We're going to go ahead and set up our party. Other things that you can look at, the support setup is what other people who are playing the game will see about your account when they are on the support selection screen, which you'll see pretty soon. The Spirit Origin list is just a list of everything you've got. Servant CEs, command codes. They are separated into those 3 categories, and you can further filter them down from there. The second archive is basically storage. So things going into your second archive will not count against your inventory that we talked about on that rolling screen. Here on the party setup, we're going to look at one thing real quick, and it's the cost. Right now, the cost is 0 out of 25 because MASH does not have a cost. That will not change. If we were to click on this blue support under normal circumstances, so pre-battle, we would be taken into support screen and be able to select our support servant. Typically, it goes in automatically. We're going to go ahead and select this right here. And we're going to tap the servant that we summoned earlier. It wants us to use your 4-star. If you got multiple 4-stars on your opening summon, I believe it will tell you to pick the first one that you got. But either way, we're going to click on Suzuka, who's very good anyway. And then we'll hit OK. You'll notice at the bottom, our cost went up to 12. So 4-star services, you can see here, cost 12. 5 stars cost 16. Now, when you're starting off early in the game, cost is very prohibitive. As you can tell, if we were to get multiple 4-stars, we could not do 2 4-stars and some craft essences because craft essences also have a cost associated with them. As of right now, that's not a big deal for the first 1 or 2 story chapters. What you'll be able to bring to a battle is probably going to be fine to beat everything in that battle. You're probably not going to have to worry about having servants ready on your backline where it says sub-member right here. Servants on the back line are basically like a bench. If they're back here, they're ready to come in if someone on the front line dies, or if you send them in with a variety of techniques, one of them being a mystic code that can switch them in. Down here, speaking of mystic codes, is the master equip. So if you click on that, you can change your mystic code if you have other ones to change into. This one right here, clicking lineup allows you to switch the order around. So let's say all of these had servants in them. I could click lineup and then drag and drop different servants into different spots, either front to back or just around in the back line, etc. Edit party will come up with a further menu. It will allow me to clear out the craft essences, clear out the entire party, copy the party so that I can put it into another party slot. The class affinity screen here, if you click on that, it will bring up all of the classes, and as you can probably guess, their affinities, which ones are strong against which ones are weak against which ones resist other ones, etc., etc. Generally speaking, for most of part 1, you're not going to need to worry about that, at least in the early going. Now, later on, you'll need to worry about that from time to time, but when it comes to being able to beat everyday battles, like your normal battles against trash mobs, etc., which are common enemies, you're not really going to need to worry about that. However, for important battles, especially as you get to like the 5th, 6th, and 7th chapters, you are going to need to worry about class advantage. So we'll go ahead and hit close here. Hit close again. And we're still going through the guided tutorial aspect. There's only a few more like this. As you can see here, there are now more of these what are called arrows, right? So before there was only 1. Now there are 3. You also have increased rewards here. You're still only going to get 1 Saint Quartz, but if you take a look at the bone, there are 2 of them to be gained from this section. So now we have the support selection screen that I have alluded to from time to time. And so what you can do with this early on is extremely varied. There's a lot that you can do here for a newer player. Later on, you're probably going to be looking for the same 3 or 4 servants every single time. That sounds boring, but it's actually a pretty comfy place to be from an account perspective. So what we're going to do is, if we use someone else's support, they will receive friend points from us. If someone uses our support servants, then we will receive friend points from them. It's a nice little system because the friend points feed into the friend point banner, and that will enable you to get servants and craft essences, upgrades to those servants and craft essences via EXP, and also command codes. So we click that. We could kind of browse around, check out our options. It wants us to pick this 0 person. There's also a Shinowaki, Anthony, Dakin, etc., right? So what you'll notice is that you can sort this in different ways, right? Right now, it's sorted by login. We clicked this and went to level. Click it again, sort by HP, again, attack, and then again, login. What you can do for a lot of part 1 is go to mix, and go to attack, and that will show you the highest attacking servant available to you, right? You don't have to do that by any means. In fact, what a lot of us do is we go to caster, and we go to HP, because we want our casters who are supporting us to last as long as they can. And so typically what that means is that the higher HP they have, the longer they will last. So we're going to go ahead and take Merlin. It wants us to go ahead and start our quest. Typically you would be able to plug in craft essences right here and put also some servants in the back line. But as I said, it doesn't matter right now. One important thing to note that is different about this screen compared to the previous screen that we looked at for the party setup: auto burning settings. Early on in the game, you don't want anything to be automatically burned. You will have a use for everything that you get. 1-star EXPs, silver, everything, right? So you want to keep all of these disabled on auto burning. As you play, as you go along, there are just going to be things that you don't need. So for my personal accounts, getting a bronze, like a 1-star or 2-star EXP, would just be a waste of space. It would honestly just be taking up more space than it would be worth. And so I keep that on auto burn. Additionally, when you are doing friend point rolls, you can turn on auto burning for certain things on that. Again, early on, I would not worry about that. We're gonna go ahead and start the quest. So this time, once you get to the battle itself, you'll notice something pleasantly different. which is the hand, the cards, as opposed to the previous nodes, right? So this time we have 5 cards in our hand. We have a lot of arts cards. One great thing about Suzuka, she does have 2 arts cards in her deck in addition to 2 buster cards. Her NP is an AoE NP, buster NP, right? She's honestly a really good starting servant. Her skills make it really easy to not only get your NP going, but to hit hard with it. Merlin in general is also very good for that. This first skill is a 20% battery, and then it also increases his attack. This is an invincible for the entire party, and it increases your star drop rate, and then it decreases critical rate for all enemies as well. The invincible is a single turn. This is one of the best skills in FGO right now on the English server, and honestly in the game period. So it'll increase the effectiveness of your buster cards. They'll hit harder, and it will increase a servant's max HP, which we're about to look at, and it will increase the critical strength by a substantial amount for 1 turn for 1 ally. So we're going to go ahead and pop some skills here. We now have defense up. We're going to use this skill on Suzuka. Watch her HP. Right now, it's 1,880. Merlin is going to increase her maximum HP. So what you'll see is that it went up by 3,000. That's a substantial amount early in the game, right? We'll also use his first skill. Get everybody some battery going. You can also take a look at her skill here. It's buster effectiveness for a turn and star drop rate for a turn. You're going to want to use this on her NP because her NP has a lot of hits. More hits equals more stars. I think we're ready to attack. We're going to go ahead and do an arts chain here. We'll start with Suzuka because she's probably going to be strong enough to just outright kill the enemy. If she does not, then Mash should be able to clean it up, no problem. You'll notice the icon on Merlin's cards. Those are command codes. Using support servants early on with command codes on them is not as big of a deal. Later on, it will make a huge difference. But if we take a look right here, his craft essence is Chaldea Tea Time. It increases the bond gain. That's why we took him. If you look at the command codes here, some of these are just outright useful for all servants. The Mash one here is a damage cut. This one is a stun immunity, I believe. But some of them are a little more niche, right? So the Tamamo one is HP recovery amount. If you don't plan on taking HP heal, like if you don't plan on getting healed, then that's not really going to do much for you. But this one, pretty nice. Damage cut for 300, 1 time, 1 turn. Immobilize immune, so stun immune. The Pigeon is a 3-star, critical strength up, etc. Like, there's a wide variety of them, a very wide variety if I'm being honest with you. But they scale from 1 to 5 stars as well. Going down here, you can see his passives, Territory Creation, which is arts up, Item Construction, just debuff success rate, that helps on his second skill. Here's the big one for Merlin, though. It increases his NP gauge each turn for yourself, right? Now, here's the problem. We're on turn 2, and his NP gauge still says 0%, right? The reason for that is unless you follow someone or you are friends with them, you will not have access to their servant's NP. So, Merlin is from an account that we just stumbled across, and we did not follow them. We are not friends with them, so we cannot use his NP, right? For a battle like this, we don't need it. That's okay, but for other purposes, we might. Let's go ahead and use Suzuka's Buster Up as well. And then also use the Attack Up. Now, the reason I'm doing these is because the last wave, when she attacked the Saber, it had 900 HP and she did not kill it, right? She was pretty well short. This time, we'll go ahead and do this and a Buster Chain. And as you'll see, the buffs are pretty significant. She did probably 2,000 damage there. Now we mentioned the bond gain. This is the bond gain that we mentioned earlier. Obviously, Mash still doesn't gain any here, but Suzuka did, which is great. Over the course of your Part 1 playthrough, if your opening servant is one that you like using, they will probably get very high bond. Maybe not maxed out, but maybe close to it. If they do hit bond 10, you will get a special craft essence of varying worth. Some of those bond CEs, as they are called, are extremely good. The one that comes to mind is Hercules. Some of them don't really make much of a difference, but for lore reasons, it's cool to have the Bond CE be able to read the text, find out more about the servant. Sometimes it has pretty juicy nuggets about their history, their preferences, what motivates them, etc. So you can see here, we've almost leveled up. On our next battle, we will level up and we'll refill our AP by a certain amount. On the display screen here, again, you can click on this. We now have one Saber Gem. This is our first drop that we've gotten, other than the bones from the after battle screens. Now this is where you can select the servant that you just used to be a friend or a follow, right? So the big difference is that you don't have to be accepted if you follow them. So if you click the follow button, they cannot reject that request. So for all part 1 story, if you follow them, you get to use their MP, you get to use their servants. They'll always appear at the top. It's a really good system. If you send a request, if you send a friend request, 1, it checks to see if their friend list is full, and 2, if it's not full, it will send a request. They can deny that request. Honestly, don't take offense if you send requests to players and you don't get accepted. It's not you, it's not your account. Typically speaking, a lot of more established players are just looking for a specific servant or two in their support list, and if they don't see it, they won't add lots of other accounts that don't have that servant, because the more other accounts that they add who don't have the servants that they need, the more difficult it will be to find those accounts, or just a little bit longer time-wise to find those accounts that they are looking for. So no hard feelings if you send a request and don't get accepted. In the meantime, you can always hit the follow button, which we are going to do because the game is telling us to, and that will apply for part 1. As you go through this first story chapter, Fuyuki, you'll start to get more and more capability, more options, and things that you can access. Now we're going to go to the enhancement screen. This is probably the most important screen that you'll see in your menu. So right now, what we can do is enhance our servant. This means one of 2 things. As you can see here, you can read the prompt when you're playing on your own, but basically you'll use EXP to level up your servant. Their HP and attack and level will all increase until they hit a certain cap. Once they hit a cap, you can ascend them. Once they hit their max cap, you have to use a Holy Grail, which is a big golden cup, in order to get them further past that. There are 1-star, 2-star, 3-star, 4-star, and recently 5-star EXPs. As of this recording, you cannot farm 5-star EXPs, but that will be coming soon, and you'll probably be able to turn on Twitch and see me farming for them because we're going to need a ton of them. So if it's 5th anniversary, you'll catch me there. If not, just keep in mind that if it looks like your servants are starting to get less and less out of EXP cards, which they will, right? Proportionally speaking, 1-stars and 2-star EXPs are going to start to mean less the higher level your servants are. Keep in mind that you can still go for these ones later on. The most accessible and plentiful EXP in the game from a casual standpoint are 4-star EXPs, because of the fact that you get them just from logging in from time to time. Like from a weekly basis, you'll get them as part of your login bonus from time to time. You can buy them from the Monoprism shop. You'll get Monoprisms just by playing as well. And you can get them from event shops. You can also get the silver EXPs. You'll get them as well as the 4-star, 2-star, and 1-star from friend point rolls. Occasionally you'll get a 5-star one. It's a little more rare. But typically speaking, you're going to look to get these out of event shops, and for the gold ones, out of the Mana Prism shop. We'll exit out of this. What we want to do is select our servant that we want to enhance. Again, as you can tell, the game is guiding you to do a specific thing. We're going to select Suzuka. You can either select this or you can select auto select under normal circumstances. If I click it now, it doesn't do anything. However, under normal circumstances, auto select and you'll be able to click for options from there. But right now, click on this. And it wants us to use one of the gold EXP we just got. Let's talk about what you're seeing here. QP needed 400. You're going to need 400 QP to do this. You have 32,800 QP to do this. So this will give us 32,400 EXP. You only need 100 to go up the next level. This tells you how much to the next level. It does not tell you anything beyond that. So as you can see, we are going from level 1 to level 12. You could probably do the math on your own if you wanted to figure out the scaling, but what that should tell you is that it starts to increase by a lot as far as the EXP requirement. Typically, QP is not going to be a huge detriment as far as leveling servants go, unless you roll a bunch and really want to level a bunch of servants. So we'll hit OK. We'll come back here. You'll notice that her HP is going to go up from 1880 to 2798. Servants do not level up in a linear fashion when it comes to their stats. Some of them do. Some of them have like an S curve. Some of them have like an inverse S curve when it comes to their leveling. It really does depend on the servant. So if you notice that your stats are going up in kind of a haphazard fashion, there's a reason for that. But ultimately, you can check out their maximum stat for HP or attack on different sites, such as the FGO wiki. So we'll hit Enhance. It'll bring up a new screen. You'll hit OK. It'll tell you how much this costs. Here it is. We get to see the EXP swirling around and being fed to Suzuka. It is quite literally fed. From a lore perspective, we know that they eat the EXP. So they'll have like a little line that they say. It used to not be translated. I don't know. It used to not be translated. Now it obviously is, which is great. You'll also notice that attack scaled up as well from 1590 to 2329. Now the reason I'm bringing these up is because of the ratio. You'll notice that HP is higher than attack. That is true for most servants, but not all of them. There are many servants who have higher attack than HP, particularly useful on a lot of Berserker class servants. So, if you notice that someone has very high HP, there's typically a reason for that. The highest base HP in the game goes to a servant called Janako. She's quite literally a massive elephant-like tank. She's a stone statue at her first ascension, and she can tank lots of hits, even drawing fire towards herself, and using her very high HP to survive it. The second highest base HP in the game is a ruler. She's a bunny summer servant, and she uses that very high HP to stay on the field for longer so that she can kind of command what's going to happen as far as like cards. She can control who has cards on the field and who doesn't for a turn. She can also buff the entire party's crits and their NP gain, as well as hitting with her own AoE NP, though not for a high amount of damage. Regardless, you'll pay attention to the HP and the attack stats the longer you play, right? So we're gonna close this screen. We'll close this again. This is the Start Dash campaign that is going on right now. I'm gonna talk through all of this because there's a lot here, but it's good. I'm just gonna tell you right up front that it's good. So on the first day here, you see it says 2 Saint Courts, 5 tickets. Remember, each ticket is worth 3 Saint Courts. So we're starting off on this first day with the equivalent of 15 Saint Courts from tickets, and then 2 right there, so 17 total. You'll also get 20 EXP, 1 gold apple, 2,000 friend points, and 100,000 QP. Now you know about the QP, which is a blue gem. You know about the EXP, which is the gold bottom left icon. You know about the Saint Courts and the tickets. In these 2 middle ones, the apple and the hands shaking, the apple refills your AP, which remember is your stamina. The hands shaking are friend points. Those are indicative of friend points. So 2,000 friend points is worth 1 friend point multi. We'll be doing one of those pretty soon. Friend points can honestly be a little bit difficult to come by early on in your playthrough because you don't have a lot of people using your support servants. Therefore, getting them from this campaign is really nice. This continues not just for like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 days. It goes all the way up to the 14th day. On the last day, you'll receive 50 Saint Courts and 10 tickets. You'll get 10 tickets from the 7th day, 15 Saint Courts from the 6th. There's a lot. It's pretty smart to just kind of like hold on to this as you go and then use it on a banner of someone that you really, really like. Again, you can beat the entire game with friend point only servants and a support servant. You don't really need to stress about, do I have to have this servant? Is this one meta? Do I need this, etc.? No, you don't need to worry about that. Roll for who you want to. Use your premium currency wherever you want, your tickets wherever you want. And generally speaking, you'll be a happier player. because you'll either have tried to get who you wanted, even if you didn't get them, or you'll have gotten them, right? Either way, typically speaking, what I see from some of the more ironclad players, people who log in every day, have played for a long time, that are also free to play, is they will just develop these impressive stockpiles of quartz and or tickets. Some of them only save tickets, some of them only save St. Quartz fragments, some of them save both of those and the St. Quartz itself. But you can honestly start stockpiling some very impressive amounts of rolls just by playing the game and not rolling or rolling occasionally, or not rolling a specific type of currency. So now that we talked through the total login bonus, we're going to close this up. This is your consecutive login bonus. So this is day one. What we get is a material ticket, which is this one, and then 2,000 friend points. So nice, right off the bat on the first day. 2,000 friend points. That is a friend point multi. The next day is 1 St. Quartz. The next day is 1 EXP. After that, another St. Quartz, 2 EXP, 2 St. Quartz, and then the last day has a gold ticket there, and what is called a faux paw. The faux paw, that purple paw, or beast's paw, is used to enhance the command card, so one of the quick arts or buster cards that a servant has, by a very low amount. You'll need a lot of them to max out the enhancement on that card. Honestly, it's more of a, hey, this is my favorite servant aesthetic type thing. It's not typically going to be something that will make or break the difference in a battle. But yeah, this is something that you'll pay attention to for your favorite servants, right? So we'll close this up. And now you are brought up with a time-dependent screen. This is the Special Ascension. So Special Ascension means that you can just immediately ascend a servant all the way to the max. It doesn't make them max level. It does make them max ascension. This is extremely useful, and it's one of the more player-friendly additions to the game of late. What you'll be able to do is exit out of this, and now you have the reins. So we'll hit this limited time right here. You can get all the logins and rewards and all that stuff that's sent to your box when you get those logins and the rewards. You can hit receive all. Sometimes you won't want to do that. Most times it's okay. Over here, it's much the same. You can select which ones that you want to receive and then only receive the selected ones. The ticket is what we talked about. You'll be able to exchange the ticket for a specific item. So the exchange ticket right here, it is time sensitive. This has 111 days left. When we click on this, it will bring up 3 different options. The Soundless Bell is a part 2 item. The Deadly Poisonous Needle is a part 1 item, though deep into part 1. The Ball of Rainbow Thread, as of this recording, is not available in the English server, except for this exchange right here. This material is not available to farm. You can only get it from this ticket right here. So it's a good value. There will be more tickets coming soon in which you can only get advanced materials on that ticket. So exchange that. We'll pick up our tickets, our fruit, our friend points, our 100,000 QP, our 20 EXP, 2 more St. Quartz, and our 2,000 friend points. Then we'll close out of this. If we hit the menu again, we'll talk through some things. If you hit this terminal button right here, it will just send you back to the main screen. You know what the formation button does. We talked through that. Let's talk about some more things about the enhance screen. Let's focus on what you really need to worry about. This one right here, this is where you're going to enhance the servant. This one, you'll enhance the skills. Enhancing skills is significantly more difficult to do than enhancing servants. For enhancing servants, you just need EXP and or some grails. For enhancing skills, you're going to need specific materials and QP. For enhancing craft essences, you're going to need either craft essence EXP or, more likely, different copies of the same craft essence. On the ascension right here, this is how you can change them from max level to non-max level at a higher, basically like an evolution if you're a former Pokemon player. Ascension is similar to what we'll see down here. I mentioned it already. Palin Genesis. So Palin Genesis is when you use a Grail. It raises the servant's level cap. I mentioned the servant's level cap and Grails way up here at the top. So if you get to their level cap on this screen, they're max ascended, they're max level capped. You'll hit this and it will show you go to Palin Genesis and you'll go down here. Or you can just go to the screen to put a Grail on them. Wardrobe is not really going to be something that you'll pay attention to for a little bit. NP is where we'll combine multiple copies of the same servant, so we'll do that with Romulus. Append skills, we've already talked about. Command card enhancement, that's the faux pas. The faux pas thing we talked about, that is command card enhancement. Command codes, we talked through those with Merlin. Bond level limit release means that when you hit bond 10 and you get that bond CE we talked about, you can raise their bond limit past that up to 15, so by 1 up to 15. If you have a servant hit bond 11, 12, 13, 14, or 15, they will get 30 Saint Quartz brought to you. This is the special ascension. This means, that's what we showed earlier, right? This means that you can take a servant all the way up to their max ascension, but not their maximum level, just by using this. It's extremely player friendly. You can only use it once. You can only use it once. But it's very valuable because you don't have to use items or QP. I would say hold off on using this for a while, because you do not need a max ascension servant at any point in the first 4 or 3 singularities. You simply do not. So exit out of that. You see everything here, right? We'll click on this Noble Phantasm screen. So on this screen, it's what we talked about earlier with Romulus. You're going to be able to combine servant copies and increase their NP level. Typically, that means increased damage or some other capability if they're a support servant. It also means that your NP gauge will be able to go past 100%. This is extremely useful in a lot of game situations in which the enemy might take some away from that NP gauge. You'll still have some left over, right? But for NP1, your NP gauge is capped at 100%. NPs 2, 3, and 4, your NP gauge is capped at 200%. And then for NP5, it is capped at 300%. Exit out of this. We'll be able to click on this and find right away Romulus available to us right there. Depending on the sorting, he might appear at the top. What I always do, and I do this for all of my servant screens, this button right here, and I don't see enough new players push it, and then when they do, it's like the sun just rose on them for the first time. It zooms out. It's really simple. It doesn't look like a big deal because you don't have many servants. When you start to get hundreds of servants, and you will get hundreds of servants if you play this game long enough, it's a huge deal because being able to see 4 rows right here across all of this as opposed to 3-ish, it just makes a huge difference. So that's one thing that I would recommend. But we're gonna go ahead and click on Romulus. We're gonna click on this right here. Again, I'm gonna zoom out because that's what I always do. You'll see that his NP will go from 1 to NP2. It's gonna cost us 20,000 QP. We'll hit OK. This is what'll show up. And then you'll be able to see what's going to increase on this screen. His is heavy damage to all enemies, level 1, which means that this will go to level 2. And he increases attack for all allies. This does not scale with level. This does not scale with NP level. The increased attack is the same regardless of his NP level, but it does scale with overcharge, which we've talked about. The different percentage, 100, 200, 300% on the NP gauge. One more way that you can stack overcharge is by stacking NPs. So if I use Roma's NP, Romulus's NP first, whoever's NP is second, like Saber or Toria, who we saw earlier, her overcharge will be 200%. It will add 100% up to 500% overcharge. So what that means is if I did Romulus's NP first, he would have a standard increased attack, so 100% overcharge. And then if I used Artoria's NP after that, her overcharge would be 200%, regardless of her NP level and regardless of how far below 200% her NP gauge reads. If her NP gauge says 200% and she's the second NP to go, then it's going to add 100% to that regardless. You can also stack 3 NPs. As you can probably guess, that's 300% overcharge. So let's take a look at what we could possibly stack together as far as overcharge goes. Let's say we did Romulus is here, Roma's NP first. The increased attack would be a certain amount. And then let's say we did Artoria's NP. Her NP recharge would be a certain amount. It'd be 200% at least, right? Because we're adding 100%. Whoever goes third, if we were to do 3 NPs in a row, is going to add 200% to their overcharge. It's extremely useful for a lot of servants, especially support servants. one in particular called Caster Artoria. The higher her overcharge is, the more perfect invulnerabilities she has. They're called Protection of Avalon or something like that. They're basically invincible, except you cannot ever pierce them, right? As far as we know. So, if I were to stack those, I'd get better and better MP results. This is really clutch in part 1, because it can be difficult to get high damage going in the first few chapters, but if you can stack NPs, like with Mash's NP going first, for instance, then you can easily have access to more and more overcharge. Now we're going to go ahead and combine these NP copies. You'll click Enhance. It'll tell you right here what you're going to need for this. You go to this screen, it'll look similar to the EXP screen, right? And then we'll see the results of this. His MP went from 1 to 2, and the damage to all enemies went from 1 to 2 as well. We'll click out of this. We don't have anybody else that we could possibly NP up, but that will change somewhere. We'll close out of that. We'll look at append real quick. So this is going to tell you that you'll need servant coins and it'll cost you a certain amount and all this other stuff. Once again, you're not going to need to worry about this for a long time. However, I do want to show you the cost. So we got 2 Romas, which got us 30 coins. So if we put him here and we wanted to unlock one of these, it's going to cost us 120 coins. Now you might be thinking to yourself, wait a minute, each one's only 15 and I need 120 for one append skill? Yes, it's a little bit steep. It also scales up with your bond level. However, for most of the bond levels, the amount of coins you'll get is not very much. So you can ignore the premium banner here, right? You can ignore this premium banner, all of these others. This is the story banner. This is always going to be up, and all the servants on it either stay the same or have marginal differences that they adjust over time, very rarely. This, however, is the bread and butter of an early account. This is the friend point banner. Again, each roll costs 2,000 friend points after your first. The first friend point roll of each new day based on the server time is free. Once again, very new player friendly. So we're going to click on this. Automatic burning. All of these should be deselected. If I select one, it looks like this. This is deselected. Early on, you need all of this. So we'll hit OK, and we'll hit OK. This will be exactly the same looks-wise as the other rolls, except for the fact that the rarity will be substantially lower. So 2-star CE, you will not use 1-star and 2-star CEs for really actual impactful gameplay. However, they're nice to use to level up other craft essences, so don't throw them away. This is a bronze caster. It is Mozart. 1-star, he has a great third skill, which is a massive star bomb, in addition to an arts up on his first skill. After Mozart, the craft essence we've got is a 2-star again. Just please don't burn your 1-star and 2-star craft essences. Keep them. I'm going to show you what to do with them pretty soon. 1-star CE, yada yada. So what you're going to end up doing is when you do your friend point rolls, you're going to end up doing what's called a tap. You'll tap. It'll skip through. You can tap multiple times, and it will only show you new servants or 4-star things that you've obtained, right? You can tap again further each new time. So another Mozart. And the servants we got, again, were Mozart and Matahari. You can skip through that, right? If you just tap quickly, it'll just go right through it, right? So not only did we get 2 Mozarts, we also got a Matahari. We also got a 3-star EXP, which is pretty good for an early account, right? And we got lots of these 1-star and 2-star EXPs. Please don't burn them. They are very useful. But we have 2 more 10 rolls we can do, so let's do one here. Once again, we're going to go ahead and tap just to get through it. It's friend point rolls. You're going to be doing a lot of these throughout the course of your playthrough. There's Charles Henri Sanson. Looks like he was the only new servant that we got out of that. We also picked up a 4-star EXP, pretty nice. And then, again, more of the 1- and 2-star EXPs, plus a silver one. Our final multi of our friend point stockpile right here. A VK Braun is a 3-star. That's a very good get. A very good get from the friend point banner early on. This is Salome. She's a crazy berserker, and she does great damage. So does Caesar. That honestly was a very good friend point roll. So VK Braun has an AoE, Area of Effect NP, and a massive quick charge battery. So he can give himself 80% battery just from one of his skills if it's max level. Salome is just insane. She's very difficult to keep alive, but she has a pretty crazy third skill as well. It's very gimmicky though. This is Caesar. Probably the craziest damage potential that you'll have as a free-to-play from the friend point banner. Very good servant, kind of humorous, but very good servant, right? So that's all of our friend point rolls that we've got. What's this thing over here though? This is a foe, right? Didn't we meet this guy? So foe right here enhances servant's HP or attack by a certain amount depending on his rarity, right? So this is a 1-star, it only goes up by 10. There are others that increase by substantially different amounts. So what we're gonna do is the sell. We're not actually gonna sell anything. We're gonna close out of that though. And we're gonna talk through the shop menu. So exchange event items, you can ignore that for a long time. I don't think I use that very often at all. Burning will be a big one later on. Right now it's not really that impactful, but you can literally just burn servants or EXP or craft essences or even command codes to get various items back. If they're a gold servant, they might give you a mana prism and rare prisms, but some of them won't give you rare prisms. It depends on if they were free or not. But you'll get mana prisms for 3-stars and 4-star and 5-star servants, sometimes rare prisms. You can burn craft essences, you can burn basically anything, and it'll all give you some amount of QP. Exchanging mana prisms, you're not going to need to worry about that for a while. Exchanging rare prisms, again, might not ever need to worry about that. There's some players who never get to exchange a lot of rare prisms, maybe just a few here and there per month later on. Expanding your second archive is going to be the least of your concerns for a long time for both your servant and your CE, but what that means is you'll be able to put more of your servants or CEs into your second archive. Now when it says second archive servant, that also includes your EXPs and your foes. This is where you'll exchange your St. Quartz fragments. Again, 7 fragments equals 1 St. Quartz. This is where you can buy it. Of course, it's in yellow to highlight it. This is where you would sell your special ascension items. You don't really need to worry about that because they're from events, and as a new player, you're not going to be in a rerun from an event for a very long time. This right here, I hope you never get to use this. It's a special summon. Unregistered Spirit Origin is USO for short. You only get one after you've gotten 5 copies of a 5-star servant. So we're in the shop here, and the reason we're here, right? So we saw the exchange event items, the burning, the mana prisms, red prisms, etc. Is we're going to look in the mana prism shop. So if we look in here, you'll see a variety of things. You can purchase craft essences that come with different bonus effects on them. You can purchase command codes, again, that come with some nice effects. This is a 200 HP heal for the person who is using it. Every time you use the card that has that on there. You can buy costumes. So this is Salter, Saber Alter's costume from Shinjuku, which is a part 1.5. These code openers are used to open cards up so that command codes, which are these up here, can be applied. You'll start off the game with 0, but you'll pick them up as you go from events especially. Down here is what we're really looking at. These are summon tickets and EXP cards. This is why I said the most common are the 4-star EXP cards. You can get quite a bit of them per month. You can also get 5 tickets per month. And then these foes, remember we just rolled 1 foe from the friend point banner. It was a 1-star. This is a 3-star. It will increase your servant's maximum attack or HP by 50 depending on the foe type. There are 4-star foes. You can only use them after your servant has 1,000 HP and attack enhanced, as it says here. Once you're above this, you can use 4-star foes or gold foes. There's other things that you have to reach a certain point in the story to exchange or even do like certain interludes. This is a bond lantern. Basically, this allows you to go past bond 10, more costumes, etc. Right? So the big thing is on a month-to-month basis, you will be able to get to a point where eventually you'll be able to buy both of these sets of foes, the EXP and the tickets. The rest of it, honestly, is not quite as habitually impactful, right? But this is one that you're going to want to have on a frequent basis, right? So if we exit the shop and go back to enhance, we'll be able to take a look at our little stockpile here. So we're going to zoom out again. What you can do is lock or unlock servants. If they are unlocked, they can be accidentally burned. So the first copy you get of someone, you should want to keep them locked. As you see here, our first Mozart copy was locked. Our second one was not. The game does that automatically. Select is a different delineation, similar to lock, but it has a sorting option associated with it. If I were to select Suzuka, Mash, and then a VK Braun, if I were to select them, I could then go up here and do select sort. So smart sort will show you the ones that can be affected by whatever enhancement you're trying to do. Smart sort means that if I cannot do anything with them, they will be moved to the bottom. If I can't enhance them at all, they'll be moved to the bottom. If they're max level and I, can't use any EXP on them, they'll be moved to the bottom. If they're max skill and I'm on the skill screen, they'll be moved to the bottom, etc. Select sort will move all of the servants that we just selected to the front. So now a VK Braun, Mash, and Suzuka are there. If both of those options are on, it doesn't matter if someone is selected but they don't have anything that I can improve them anymore on, they will not appear at the very top. But regardless, we have some EXP, we have some servants here. What you need to do as soon as you can is start leveling these servants. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna level Mash, right? The push feature here, by the way, is like to identify your favorite. That's literally all it is. I don't understand why there's all kinds of this. No, it's your favorite. That's what it is. Hit the push button, put it on a servant, put that servant on your support list, boom, everybody knows. It's really that simple. But we're going to go ahead and select, let's go with Mash here. We talked about this auto select a little bit ago. There seems like a lot of options here, but they're honestly pretty straightforward. So you can either do same class only, or you can do all, right, for this. If you do all only, like it doesn't select any of the classes. It just selects the one that are not class-based EXPs. Typically, you'll either just leave it on this or maybe do same class only. But we're going to leave it on there. And then you can also say which ones you want to appear and which ones you don't want to appear, right? So we have these selected. We don't have any 5-star EXP. So that tells us we can't do that. We do have 4-star EXP. So that's what pops up when we do that. 3-star, this is what pops up, etc., etc. You can delineate as many or as few of these as you want and try to get the most efficient options that you can to get up to max level, right? For now, we're going to go ahead and feed these into Mash. For Fuyuki, this is more than enough. There we go. Now, there's one other thing that we're going to select, right? We click on this, zoom out again. You'll see the foe right there. If we do that, it's going to increase either her attack or HP by the amount on the card, right? You will also notice that technically speaking, you can select servants to be used as EXP. It does not give you very much. I don't recommend doing it because if you can't use them for NP levels, then you may as well burn them for QP in the shop. We're gonna go ahead and grab this foe. It's gonna increase her attack by 10 right here, as you can see. You can take this up to 1,000 right here, and then it takes another entirely different set of foes to be able to do 2,000. But we'll go ahead and do this. Again, standard enhancement screen. Click through that, and it gives you the 10 foes. So we leveled up Mash a little bit. We still have some EXP, so why not level up a VK Braun? He is very good. So what we're going to do is say, you know what? We're not going to worry about all these other ones. We just want the 4-star EXP. We'll pick those. And let's say we want to try for what's called a super or a great success. So what I'm going to do is deselect roughly half of these, right? The reason I do that is because a super or great success means that my EXP that I put in here is going to count for double or more, right? So let's say that this were to work, when it's just not going to because it's pretty rare, right? But if it were to result in a super or great success, never mind it did. Wow, that's really lucky. That's so lucky. So it did count for super great success, which means instead of going to like level 12, which is what it was supposed to, it did go for double the amount. The reason I deselected half of that EXP is because there's always a chance that that super or great success could pop off, as you see here, and I saved myself all that EXP, which is huge early on. So I saved myself all that EXP just because I decided to take the chance on this, right? Now, if we pick someone else, let's say Suzuka, we do the auto select. It tells us to use 15 of these. Click and hold, deselect half, and we go through it again, right? Obviously, it's not gonna, like, we'd have to be insanely lucky for that to happen again, but it's gonna go from 12 to 24 this time. It would have taken double this to go up to max, right? Or at least max of the number that we could hold here, right? This would use all of our EXP to go up to level 31. But if I were to do it in piecemeal portions, right, half at a time or etc., some of these may result in a super or great success. Long story short, you don't want to go all the way to the level max with EXP here. You want to stop either a little bit short or even go like halfway per time, just in case some of them hit a super or a great success rate. If they do that, then you've just saved that much EXP and QP as well. So hit OK, go through this screen. It's a standard success rate. So that's probably good enough for Suzuka, probably good enough for a VK Braun, probably good enough for MASH. You don't have to use all of these. We may get someone later on. We do have another NP level to take care of. Now, if it seems like I'm kind of like doing redundant things, or if hey, you already showed this, why are you doing this again? It's because I want to show just like typical, usual, habitual gameplay, right? Like, these are the steps you're going to take. We're trying to normalize the gameplay mechanics for you, right? Now, we do have command card enhancement, technically speaking, available to us. We'll select a servant and then apply that faux pas to it. But it costs a lot of QP. It's millions and millions of QP to do max faux pas, not to mention the fact that it takes forever to get them. It's not really that big of a deal. As you can see, it's 500 attack increase per. For most players, it doesn't really change the outcome of the battle for them, but it's something to keep in mind if you really enjoy Servant. So since this is just a demo account, just here to show off on the video and kind of teach you some things, we are going to go ahead and do the Special Ascension. So here on the Special Ascension, we'll bring out, let's say, who do we want to use? Who has the best Final Ascension art here? Let's do Medusa. All right, so Medusa. By the way, I don't recommend doing this for 3 stars or below. I do recommend for like gold servants only. That being said, if you take a look, you're going to see a massive, massive benefit. 1608 HP to 7800 HP, 1337 to 6349 attack. It costs 0 QP. It really is a really player-friendly tool that you can make use of. When I use this, it's going to warn me that I can only do this once. I'm going to read this. I'm going to say OK. Go into this. It shows off each individual ascension. So you don't just like skip them, right? You still get to see them. I do that one. It goes into the next one automatically. Shows what mats I would have used. Next one, gold that time. A lot of times, and this is like an ongoing trope in FGO, when they get to the 3rd ascension, as you notice, she did not change her like ascension art, her card, or her outfit, anything, right? Now it's like almost a joke beaten to death. But like a lot of times the servants will say, oh, I didn't change, or my clothes didn't change, or oh, you were looking at my whatever. So moving on. And there's the final ascension art.
何を育てたのか分かっているのですか。ここまで私に力を注いだのです。責任を取っていただかないと。まずはその心から虜にして差し上げましょう。
Yeah, so completely random that I chose this servant, not at all because of what she says or how she looks in her final ascension art. Nope, not at all. But anyway, so once you do that, it will go away. If you look under the ascension screen or selection here, it's gone, right? So go into your formation, go into your spirit origin list. She's up there at the top, 60 out of 70. She is max ascended, right? It doesn't change anything else. It literally just goes up to there. You still have to finish off the leveling requirement. Doesn't change the skills, and it doesn't change NP level or anything like that. It literally just takes them up to their final ascension, which is nice. It does save you a ton of time, not only farming specific materials to get her ascended on those, but also the EXP and QP that would have required. Again, I don't really recommend this for 3 stars. I don't even recommend it for your starting 4-star unless you just don't roll any at all during the first 90 days that you play the game. Then it's okay, I guess, but typically you're going to want to save this for either your first like real gacha gold servant, whether that's a 5-star or 4-star. But the predominant reason is because you are able to get servants that are from late in the game at any point in the game, right? So if I were to go over to a specific banner, right? I hop in, I look at this, I'm gonna say like, all right, who's here? What do I have the chance to get? Jeanne d'Arc Archer is a big one. Let's see here. BB, right? So Summer BB. I have the ability to roll for them. I have the ability to get 5-star Janako right here on the right side. I have the ability to get 5-star Odysseus here on the left side at the top. I could get them from this banner, right? Like I could start the game brand new and get them off of this banner. It would be rare, but it's a thing that could happen. The materials that they require, and another one's Europa right here, right? The materials that they require to be skilled and ascended sometimes are locked very deep behind story content. We're talking like, this is not something you're going to do in a day type of thing. But you're a new account and you just rolled them and maybe you like them, or you just think, hey, like this is my first SSR. Like, of course I want to be able to use them. The special ascension is extremely clutch for that. It means that you don't have to basically sit on an underdeveloped servant for weeks or even months until you catch up to where they can have their materials farmed or the right event comes around. Honestly, it's one of the most player-friendly implementations, at least for new players, they have created for a while. And I love it. I love it. But I will say, let's keep an eye on who you can possibly use it on. You may have seen that it said 90 days. It said 89 days remaining, so basically 90 days remaining on that. Plenty of time to potentially use it elsewhere if you really want to. And if not, you can wait till that very end time and then use it on whomever you want anyway, right? There's no real rush because in the first 4 singularities, you're just not going to need a lot of firepower. Support servants are going to be more than enough to supplement your own roster as you learn to play the game anyway. So that's Special Ascension. That's the reasons why you should and should not use it. Other than that, we don't have any command card enhancements to do or append skills. We don't have any command codes that we want to slap on people right now. We don't have anybody at Bond 10. If we were to look at the Craft Essence screen next, we could look at how we're going to level CEs. This is important. Because we're not burning any Craft Essences, we have a use for all of them. What you're going to do is combine all of the CEs that are the same ones, so they'll say Limit Breakthrough, until this card has 4 green dots on it. So this has 2, right? I've combined them into 2, right? If I were to click on any other ones, if I were to click on this one and I go back, it's not going to give me another star. So that's how you know it has to be the same type, right? So I'll exit out of that. I'll pick up another one that I know is going to give me a green dot right there. It says Limit Breakthrough. That's how I know. I hit OK. I come back here and I combine them. Once you have a CE that has all 4 of those green dots, right? just move on to the next one. So you'll put 4 of one type of CE into one copy of that same type. That will do what's called a max limit break, or MLB. It means you have 4 green dots. You want to stockpile as many of those MLB CEs as you can over time. It doesn't matter if they're 1-star, 2-star, 3, or whatever. You want to stockpile MLB CEs because, as I said earlier, they all have a use. And that use is to level other CEs. And the way that you'll level other CEs with these is you'll combine all your MLB copies, even if they're of different kinds of CEs, into one CE. That's called a base. So you use that base to build a CE bomb, as we call it. As you can see in this image, there are 6 MLB 1-star CEs. That's 6 CE bombs. If you were to level this 5-star CE using the method that you see in this image, it's going to cost you very little QP, 13,000 QP. Comparatively speaking, if you were to use nothing but CE EXP, which you'll rarely get from things like events or special time periods in the game, it will cost you a lot more QP. It'll take you a lot more leveling sessions as well. So if you use the CE EXP that you get and put them into these CE bombs and use lots of MLB copies of the 1, 2, or even 3-star CEs into your CE bombs as well, it's going to save you a lot of QP. It's going to save you a lot of time. It also allows you to build CE EXP over time without taking up too much inventory space. It's much more efficient for me to put 20 CEs into one and have a CE bomb rather than just keep 20 CEs laying around. So if we apply all of this logic together, as you see here, we put all of the craft essences into one single craft essence. It vaults up from level 19 to level 91, saves us tons of QP, tons of time, and we end up getting a pretty good CE out of it at the end, as its attack has gone from 771 all the way up to 1863. So that takes care of craft essences. On the skills here, what you'll notice is that you can't do anything. You can't do anything right now. That's how it is when it starts off. She needs 4 of these. We only have 1. We'll get more as we go. We need 100k QP. That's to go from level 1 to level 2. Skills are not going to be on the forefront of your mind for a long time. You'll level them as you can for someone like MASH, but generally speaking, skills are expensive and they require materials that you won't have at the beginning. And that's okay. That's okay. It just comes later on. One other thing, if we go to the shop here, sometimes at the top, you'll have like special things to select from, right? Special options here in which you'll be able to maybe exchange for a certain servant or a set of servants, etc., right? None of those are on there right now. And then I mentioned the special ascension materials. Again, you don't have any of these. You aren't going to have any of these for a long time. But just keep that in mind. If you do play for a while, you may end up getting those. So we're ready to go back in and do more fights, right? We remember last time that we were really close to leveling up. So we'll take whatever servant we want. This will tell you about the CE. We'll talk about that. One other thing this mentions is the class tendency. So class tendency is a little bit misleading. It's a little bit misleading, right? All right. So this is not a tendency. There's no tendency here. They are Lancers. This is what your enemies are. It's 100%. Your enemy is a Lancer. There are very, very like single-digit number of times in which that is blatantly incorrect. I think it's of like twice that I can ever think of in which it was not an accurate representation of the servant class or enemy classes that you were fighting all throughout the battle, and that's just because it was like a gameplay gimmick type of thing, right? Additionally, it may have up to 4 icons here, right? That means all of those different classes will be present in the battle. It may also have a question mark here, a question mark. Question mark can be literally any class. Typically, you'll see that in story nodes, sometimes in event nodes, and it's just to kind of mix it up, keep you on your toes. You'll notice that the support servant, no matter how juiced up they are, they do not count against this cap right here. All right. We talked about class affinity. This looks like a mess. It's actually pretty straightforward. Think of it again as Pokemon fire, grass, water, fire, etc. Right? You can apply that mentality to all of these right here and to these right here. Ruler resists all of these in this box. That's what the blue arrow means. It points to ruler because it resists all of these in this box. Alter Ego is not weak against these. It's just that they deal reduced damage, right? Same with ruler. Ruler is not like necessarily strong against these offensively, but all of these offensively from them to this will deal reduced damage. That's the best way to read the arrows. Red towards another class means that that one deals more damage towards that class. As you can see, Berserker has multiple two-way arrows here. It deals more damage against alter egos. It deals more damage against all of these classes right here. And it deals more damage against all of these classes right here. The only one that it does not deal increased damage to is the Foreigner class. The Foreigner class is only weak to alter ego class. There's a lot of gameplay implications here, a lot of things to keep track of. The most important thing for part 1, the Shielder. Mash is not weak against anyone, and she's also not going to deal increased damage against anyone. So close that up. We mentioned the edit party. We don't need to copy it. We don't need to reset it, anything like that. We're going to go into the battle. We don't need to change our Mystic Code because we don't have any other ones, but eventually you'll have a wide variety of them down here. Close that up. Head into Start Quest. You'll see here that you level up. Your max AP went up to 21. Your cost to 26. Your friends went from 20 to 21. All AP has been restored. This is big. That's the biggest part, is that your all AP was restored. On the English server right now, we do not have a way to use extra AP unless we go into a battle, right? On the Japanese server, they have a way to use this. In this menu, tucked here between bronze and silver fruit, aka apples, are blue apples. They also have a button right here in which they can convert extra AP above their full amount or at any amount before then into blue apples. What you can't do is like load up a bunch of fruits like this because your AP is already full and then convert them into blue. It wouldn't make sense to anyway. But you can convert all of your AP into blue apples on the Japanese server right now. It's a great quality of life addition. It's very player friendly, and I'm really a big fan of that, right? A couple more things to look into on your friends and following screen. This is the person that we're following, this 0 person. We do not have any friend requests because we're losers. And then, I'm just kidding. And then on the user search, this is where you'll enter the friend code of your friends that you want to add, you know them, etc. You find them from a Discord server. You can also copy this and then paste it elsewhere. But this is what people will ask for when they ask for your friend code. You'll give them this and then they can add you. If you know someone's friend code and you want to try to add them, you'll put it in here, you'll hit search, and it'll come up with someone. This number will go up dramatically. It says 21 right now. It goes way, way, way higher. Next, we're going to talk about something called your support list. Now, there is an entire other video that I did about your support list, who you should put on there as a new player, right? But for this purpose, we're going to talk about splitting the support list. Splitting your support list. So right now, this is a non-split support list. What that means is it's normal and it's event. If I'm going to split a support list, which is what I should do, I'm going to click this button down here to set my normal or main support list, non-event, to set 1. Now, when I scroll over, normal will be gone. I've already selected set 1 as my normal or main support list. So I can't select 2 or 3 to be that, right? I'm also going to select set 2 to be my event support list, right? Now I have a split support list. Now my normal support shows one set of servants and my event support shows another set of servants. If you are doing an event support setup, if you're doing one of those before or during an event, you can go here, typically to this first slot. If you really want to get a handle on what you've got going on, you'll hit all, and this will tell you who has an event bonus. You'll typically want to put these servants on your support list because players will be looking for servants who have an event bonus. When you're brand new, that's not really going to make a difference. Players are not going to be looking to take lower level servants, and that's just like the harsh truth of it. There's nothing wrong with that, right? But now I have a split support list, right? Set 1 selected, set 2 selected. Set 3 is neither of those. Set 3, I typically keep in reserve for what are called hunting quests. And what that means is, if I have my normal support list, people can use this for like story, daily farming, etc. On your support list 2, your event, this is specifically for events that you'll know when they're an event, like it tells you it's an event, or for things called hunting quests. Hunting quests, you're gonna want to give people options that will allow them to farm faster. Again, when you're a newer player, it's okay. You can't do that. No worries at all. Like we all understand. But eventually you'll be able to. And so what I do is I put my AoE servants here, right? And I like to put in servants who can help out players who are trying to farm. So VK Braun would be a good one because he has a massive battery when it's leveled up, and he has an AoE NP, right? So now your support list is split. Now whenever players see your friend request or see your account, if they're just coming across you, or if you've selected someone to add you from a Discord server or whatever, they won't be able to say, hey, you need to split your support list. I'm not going to add you until you do that. Because there are people who do that. So you know what to do in formation. You know what to do in enhancement. You know what summoning is. You know what the shop is, the friends and following. Let's talk about my room. So my room here has a wide variety of different options. Some of these are extremely useful. Some of these are just plain interesting. And a couple of them you don't ever want to touch. So I'm not going to read through all these because I'm going to tell you what you need to know and what you don't really need to know. Mash is in here by default, right? So you can switch the display, focus on her, focus on the room, etc. Later in the game, you'll be able to change who's in this room with you, like who you can talk to, who you can look at in here. But right now, it's Mash for, I believe, story reasons. We talked about the coins. This is your coin inventory. This tells you how many you have. As you can see, you get very few for your 1 and 2 star servants, and you still need the same number of them to unlock certain appends and do certain grailing past level 100. So as you can imagine, it's much more difficult to get those low star servants up that high and into that sort of next level territory with the appends and the grails past level 100, right? Your item list here is something you're going to be referencing the entirety of your gameplay. This only has a few things right here right now because it's a brand new account. Someday this will be chock full of lots and lots and lots of different items that you can use to ascend your servants, to skill them up, to refill your AP, to roll for servants. It'll have grails, it'll have crystallized lores, which is what you'll need to go from level 9 to level 10 of a servant's skills. So if I were to take a look in here at the material screen, what I can do is I can go look at all my spirit origin lists, right? So like this is all the servants in the game and how many of them that I have, a little bit Pokemon-esque. Same with CEs. That is not a typo. There are 1,218 CEs, and that number grows every month in the game. In addition to that, I can also click Spiritron dress list. This shows you how many Spiritron dresses are in the game, right? Obviously, you don't have any. You're not going to have any for a while, but there are 48 costumes. Some of them are not obtainable, as much as we know right now, ever again. Anytime you use a servant or come across them, they will appear in the Spirit Origin list. So obviously, I did not summon Merlin. I did not summon Musashi, but I used them. So they appear in here. Again, kind of like a Pokédex. In the main records, this is about as close to a story recap as you're going to get. If I go into this, I'll be able to just jump right back into the prologue, read it all again. What some people do when playing through the game, let's say maybe they are falling behind or they don't have a lot of time or they didn't really want to read something right then and there. You're not in the mood to read. You just want to catch up on story or whatever. They'll skip through it and then they'll come back in here, right? So let's say I skipped section 1. I can come back to this and just read through it as if I'm playing through it again anyway. What you can do as well, if you were like halfway through reading it or something like that and you had to exit out of it, you can skip this and then go to the next cutscene in that same arrow. You can also just return to the materials screen, which is this right here, right? So we'll exit out of that and that. And that takes care of just about all of this. You can go through this and take a look at what you know about a servant already, let's say. For Medusa, the only interaction you have with her is her summoning. So if I click on this, it shows me her summoning screen. You can click through that again. For some of the other ones, though, you may have a little bit more. So like I've leveled up a VK Braun. So it shows you what he said when he leveled up. You can access for a wide variety of different servants, a wide variety of different voices and things. Again, you can use this to not only reference back or kind of relive moments with your servants, but also to save some time if you need to. So back out of that as well. We talked about material, item list, servant coin, inventory. The soundtrack here is exactly what you think it is. However, there are certain things that you can do to unlock other ones. You can pay 10 gold saber monuments to unlock that. So, I mean, I've never unlocked anything here because materials are honestly pretty valuable in my opinion. But as you can see, based off of these, a lot of these are purchasable with these statues. Yeah, they're tough to come by as it is, so I could never justify using them on songs, but that's just me. So we talked about the soundtrack, your master profile, right? This is what we talked about earlier as far as like you can set your birthday, you can change your gender, change your name. You have an in-game message here as well, maximum of 23 characters, and you can put whatever, right? Put whatever. If it is caught by the game's filter, what will happen is, so let's say we like put this in here, and we try to hit OK. It'll take it, but what it'll show on other people's screens is typically going to show up as this. It'll just like put stars over it, right? So we'll obviously go ahead and erase this. You don't have to have anything there. You can also check this as a general reference for your login streak, your total logins, which you'll get a bonus every 50 logins. You'll get 30 sync quartz every 50 every 50 logins, and then your days to your next login bonus, right? How many QP, friend points, all this other stuff is available right here. Look at your master profile. Again, you can't change your favorites yet. You have to clear Fuyuki first. The help screen doesn't like take you to a like if I hit contact us, it's going to tell you like how I can go about this, right? It'll take me somewhere else, but there's not an in-game screen that's going to pop up. If I hit contact us here, it requires an app email to send email, right? If I hit feedback, it requires an email app to send email, right? So if you don't have that, it's going to tell you what you just saw here. The news screen is what you can see when you first log in anyway. Game system explanation. So this is one of the least known about screens in the entire game, in my opinion. Let's say I hit servant status, right? Let's say I hit rarity. Great, now I know about the stars. The cost, right? Can't exceed the cost. Append skills. Abilities unique to each servant doesn't really tell me a whole lot, right? But it's things like true name. All right, well, I didn't even know that true name was going to be a thing in this game because I'm brand new to this. Well, now I know that this is a thing. This is something that I can look forward to. In addition to that, if we talk about master status, right? So that unregistered spirit origin I talked about, this is exactly what that's going to tell you. I'm not going to go through all of these. The important thing is that when you are, I don't know, new to the game and maybe have some time, it's not a bad idea to just kind of like go through here and read about stuff. One other thing that we want to look at when it comes to the Saint Court summons, what this does not mention is a future feature coming. We will be getting a pity feature in the future, which means like you'll have a maximum ceiling that you can spend before you're guaranteed to get the servant that you want. It's a very high ceiling. It's not something that we actually enjoy having, but it's better than not having one, as we typically say. So that's in the game system explanation. There's the news, the terms of use, privacy policy, credits, and licenses, and account deletion. All of that's pretty standard there. That's in the help screen. Game options. This is extremely expansive. I'm going to talk through all this, right? So we talked about the mute button. We talked about the sounds. Text display speed means that the text speed is the speed by which the text will appear, All right. Unless I tap, it's going to appear this quickly, right? I typically put it on this or even this. You can put it on literally anything you want. Now, this right here affects how quickly the screen will progress to the next one. So even if I have it on the maximum speed right there, the dialogue speed could be the slowest, and it's still going to rotate slow, right? Now let's flip these around. The text speed could be that slow. The dialogue box speed could be at the maximum. Well, the text is still going to appear really slowly. But when I get to the end of that dialogue set, right, down here, the speed by which the dialogue box itself will scroll through is going to be dramatically different, right? So when it gets to the full part here, it automatically just appeared because I put the dialogue box speed at maximum, right? Now, let's find a middle ground here, 3 and 3, right? So it filled up at a reasonable pace, and it scrolled to the next one at a reasonable pace as well. I believe that's the default. Automatic text speed is a different thing. This is when you hit auto on the bottom right of that dialogue, or that dialogue box that we showed earlier. The text speed itself is just like how quickly it's going to appear. Here's the really important parts. Ascension level story spoilers. So when this is on, support servants will not show ascension levels that have story spoilers in them. There's some really prominent examples later in the game, one in particular that comes to mind, where you just don't want to see his final ascension if you don't have any idea what's going on, right? So you could probably leave this on if you're not familiar with the game very much. I typically leave it off just because I'm all caught up on story on the Japanese server anyway. Final ascension settings to supports. This says it's off. What this means is if you turn it on, now I can see the final ascension settings, the final ascension art, I should say, for servants that I can use from my support list, right? Spiritron dress settings, if it's off, it will not show their costume. I just turned it on. I like to see the costumes. Support selection options. This is big because it automatically displays the advantageous class. When you're new, this could be nice to have on. You don't want to have to think about, all right, well, I need to go to the affinity chart. Well, this is strong against this. Well, this is strong against this. You'll learn that as you play through anyway, and it's not that complicated. So what I typically do is turn this off because most of the time, what I need is going to be either a supporting caster with a certain craft essence on them or a specific event servant anyway that I'm going to the extra slot for, or the all classes slot for. First use of NP normal speed. You can leave this on if you want, but it means that every time you use an NP for the first time, it will be on that normal or even slow speed, as we called it. NP subtitles, exactly what it sounds like, subtitles on the NP. Enhancement subtitles, that's the same thing. Random ascension levels for all servants. So what this means is the servants that you own will be displayed randomly for their ascensions. If you have a favorite ascension of a servant, you want to keep this off, right? If it's on, it will randomize all your servants' ascension level settings whenever you look at them, okay? Same with friend and follow display settings. The ascensions will be displayed randomly from them without showing spoilers if the other option is enabled. You can turn that on if you want it to be random amongst all of them. I like to keep this off because I like to see who the favorite ascension is for most players, right? Some people like to use the second one. For instance, my Shiki, Saber Shiki, she's kept at second ascension because the art is beautiful for it, in my opinion, right? So the My Room servant to random, if you really don't have a favorite or you just kind of like all of them in general, you can turn this on and it will just show a random servant out of all the ones that you've summoned. It's kind of a crapshoot, right? The friend message display settings, so I'll show you what that means, but with a place where we put shit in that message, that is the friend message display. And so when this is off, it will not show anyone's friend message on the support selection screen, right? It's on, we'll see what they have to say. Typically, there's not really anything of note there. The push notification for AP recovery is pretty useful. I have never, ever had the BP recovery notification go off because if there's BP involved, you're typically pretty up on using it all. The battle data cache settings means that you're not going to get a ton of like lag or loading when you're repeating the same servant's usage over and over, right? So like If I use that Musashi again, my loading time might be a little bit faster because it doesn't have to load all of her assets again. The bottom down here is the real humdinger of them all, the download all. Your honestly, game will perform better, especially if you're in a bad connection area. Honestly, it will perform better. It does go a little bit faster, I've noticed, as far as like loading and stuff like that. But that's typically only if you honestly have like a bad connection. A lot of things will just get added to the game's cache anyway. But if you download it all, you keep everything there. Another thing to note is that if you download all data, you won't see any loading when you summon for servants unless you have like a really bad connection once again. And typically even then it won't do anything. The blacklist down here, you can like block someone from sending you friend requests if you're getting harassed or if they're like constantly sending you these. I've never had to blacklist someone, and I've again had tons of accounts, but if you do need it, it is here at the bottom. Okay. So game options. This is the transfer number screen. I'm not going to make one, obviously, because that would be dumb of me to do this on a video. But what you'll do is create a password, put it here again, and then you'll hit register. It will give you a code. You want to keep that code in a couple of different safe places. You can also write down the password if you want, but make sure that this transfer code is one of the first things that you do. Once again, you'll go to the menu in My Room, all right? Menu, My Room. Go to the bottom to issue transfer number. You'll put in a password. You come up with the password. The game comes up with the code on the next screen. Write those down, keep them safe. If you lose your phone, if you lose your account, if something happens, whatever, you can use the transfer code and password to regain your account. There have been, I can't even tell you how many times in my own community on Discord and Twitch in which someone has said, hey, I don't know where my transfer code information and password is. Like, how do I get my account back? Okay, well, do you have receipts for the Saint Courts you bought? No, I was free to play. I never bought anything. All right, well, unless you have images of all of your servants and all of their skills, you're probably not going to be able to get it back, right? Like, it's a lot. So, because of the fact that Fate Grand Order is not tied to any outside account, like it's not tied to your Google account, it's not tied to your phone number or whatever, it's an independent entity wherever you download it. Because of that, you really need to keep track of this transfer code. It's archaic, it's outdated as a system, but it's what we have. So make sure that you get to this screen and create a transfer code as soon as you possibly can when you start a new playthrough. The other thing is return to title. This seems like a weird option. You're like, well, why would I want to return to the title? The reason for that is if I go to my formation here and I put a support setup up, sometimes you need to re-log in to have your account appear at the top of the list for other players looking for you. That's extremely niche as far as usage goes for most players. I use it all the time, that return to title button, but that's because I'm constantly changing my support list to help out people in my community who ask for certain servants or craft essences whenever they need them. But generally speaking, return to title is not really going to be like a super consequential thing. If you need to exit the game, you can just close the game. Like, it's not even that big of a deal. You don't need to return to title for that or whatever. So that is My Room. With that, we have looked through all of the menu options down here. We've talked about everything that you can see. If we hit the terminal button and go through here, we're going to walk through some more things. So this is the news screen. The news screen, believe it or not, has news. So if I want to go back to that screen, I don't click this X. If I click the X, I go back to this main screen. Don't worry about this consecutive battle thing. Basically, if you see an infinity sign right here, it means you can repeat the battle. That's about it. That's it. But if I want to go back to that, I'll hit news. I'm back here. If I want to go back to that screen without going back to the terminal, I'll hit back. All right. Another thing is you'll be able to see on here if it says summon. This will tell me how long this is going to last. This will tell me who is in the banner. It will tell me the classes, the rarities, right? It will also tell me some information, some preliminary information about the servants, some craft essence information down here, right? And then sometimes, depending on the banner, it may have detailed information even further about a wide variety of craft essences. Typically not, but this one has a ton of limited craft essences on it, and so that's why it goes into such detail about all of them. And then down here, sometimes it'll have a link for you to go to if a servant's NP has been featured on that page. And obviously, Jarcher, Jeanne d'Arc Archer, is on the headline for this. But this has all of them on here. I don't know how many servants that is, but it's a lot. So if we were to click on that, we would be able to go watch some of the NPs for featured servants. Click on this to go back to the top. When's maintenance going to happen? That'll tell you what updates have been included in the game. This will tell you some issues that they know about. Right, so that's that screen. You can also click on this to go back to that screen we looked at in the My Room screen. Now we're going to go through some of the other locations here, right? So Chaldea Gate right here has what are called dailies. All right. Daily quests, you don't need to do them daily. That's a big misconception among some players. Daily quests are not quests that you need to do daily. It means they change daily. They change every day, right? And so you can farm these if you want to. You can leave them for when they are reduced cost. That's what I would recommend. Early on in your playthrough, you're probably going to need to hit some of these right here, right? Some of the EXP quests from time to time. Probably not, but like you might want to, and so it'll probably be these, right? You'll notice that these are in red. You might be thinking to yourself, wait a minute, that doesn't make any sense. I have 39 AP. This is a 30 AP node. Why can't I do this? The reason is the AP requirement is based off of your maximum AP and not your current AP. It's a minor way of like gatekeeping more difficult content behind that level requirement so that newer players don't walk in there and just get their asses handed to them, right? That being said, you can do all of these with just a support servant alone. They're not really difficult, but we are going to get better versions of these pretty soon. 5-star version of the EXP. Down here, the training grounds, these drop different items. Some of them are gems, some of them are skill and ascension items, some of them are the statues that we talked about when we looked at the soundtrack screen. Down here, this is just QP. If you remember, the QP is the blue gems that you use for ascension and skill upgrades, right? So these are dailies, but you don't need to worry about them every day. They're available on a daily basis. They rotate on a daily basis. This part right here changes class by class on a daily basis. If you look at the help screen, sometimes I still go to this screen just to see like, hey, what class is up? I need some caster monuments, right? Okay, well, caster monuments are going to be available on Friday in the caster training ground, okay? Same with the EXP, right? All right, so I need some Archer EXP. When is Archer going to be back on the EXP, right? For EXP, it looks like Wednesday for Archer, right? Among the Caster and Berserker as well. You'll notice that Berserker is available every single day. Every single day. I honestly don't know why. To me, it would have made sense to just have Berserker be its own day. Maybe on Sunday instead of all of them, because Sunday's the worst day to farm for EXP because of the fact that you just get a hodgepodge of all EXP classes instead of being able to focus. But I am not a dev, so I don't know why. So that's the dailies. When people talk about doing dailies, people talk about that. It's not like a Genshin Impact game where you do it every day. These are just rotating every day. That's all it is. Right? One thing to note really quick about remaining time. Remaining time. So FGO is kind of weird in that the time that you see there is not the time that's really accurate. It says it's 23 hours. It's not actually 23 hours. It's 23 hours and some minutes. In this case, it's 23 hours and 45 minutes. For some strange reason, they didn't input a way in the UI to show minutes after hours. So when that 23 hours gets down to 1 hour, it'll then go into a different set of time. Like it's not going to say, all right, I'm at 1 hour. All right, it's expired now. It's not going to go from 1 hour to 0 hours or anything like that. Like it's just going to change. So you don't really have 23 hours. It's 23 plus some. You never have the exact time that it says on there left unless it is less than an hour. If it's less than an hour, then that's the accurate time. If it's more than that, you can add some more time on top of that. That sounds useless, but I'm telling you right now, there are some events, especially if you get busy in life or something going on, where you're going to cut it close on a razor's edge, but you still want to finish the event. Keep in mind that this is not exactly accurate. You're going to have some amount of time rounded up to the next hour from this, right? So in this case, I do have 23 hours left, but I can round up from there and say, all right, well, you know, it might even be like closer to 24, etc. So that's the dailies. These are the Mystic Code quests right here. The 3 that you can get outright. This is the Chaldea Combat Uniform. It has 3 skills on it. The first one is a party-wide attack up. The second one is a chance to stun. It's a 500% chance to stun now. It used to be a lot lower on the English server. But basically, you're going to stun one enemy. The third skill, this is why we call it the plug suit. That and its look. It allows you to take one servant from your front line and substitute a backline servant in their place. Quote-unquote, plug them in, plug them out, etc. It's called a plug suit because of Evangelion, but like whatever. The next one is the Mages Association uniform. The 3 skills that it has is a party-wide heal, a single NP charge, I think of 20% on a servant, and then a card shuffle as well. There are times when it's a useful one, how it's extremely situational. The default Mystic Code and the Chaldea Combat one are generally more useful across the board. And then this is the Atlas Institute uniform. I would argue that it's more useful than the Mages Association one. The reason this one's important is because if you are running a solo comp or if you are going into a particularly difficult or gimmicky quest, it's really nice to have that. It has an invincible on it for a turn. It has a debuff removal, so it cleanses all debuffs from one servant. And it can reduce your servant's skill cooldowns by 2 for one servant. It's really, really good. If you only unlock one of these 3 early in the game, I would argue that you're going to choose between Atlas Institute or Chaldea Combat Uniform. Obviously, this is a very good one for its own reasons, especially when it comes to farming as a newer player, right? This is good for different reasons, but still very good ones, right? Down here, the interlude screen. It has exactly what it sounds like, interludes. An interlude is a story quest with a servant. Now, sometimes you only get quartz for it. So if I do Suzuka's interlude, right, I'm going to get St. Quartz for it. I'll go through some story with her. Sometimes it's silly, sometimes it's whimsical, sometimes it's very serious. Sometimes these are very sad. But typically, they're pretty lighthearted, kind of whimsical, slice of life type things. Sometimes these reduce in outright upgrades. So when I do Fergus's, it'll give me an NP upgrade. It'll make his NP better. Same with Babbage. If I do his, it'll make his NP better. So it depends, depending on the interlude. It changes depending on the interlude, I should say, whether or not you'll get an upgrade from it or quartz from it. On a rank up quest, those are purely upgrades. You get 2 quartz from it, and it increases something. So for all these 3, it's a skill. Scrolling down here, all those 3, it's also a skill. More skills here. And then for these final 2, also skills. There are NPs sometimes on those. Typically speaking, you're going to have an order of operations on those. So what do we mean by that? Let's take a look at Caesar. So Caesar has an NP upgrade available to him. It is a powerful NP upgrade, right? However, as you can see on the bottom here, he has an interlude and 2 upgrades. The first rank up gives him a skill upgrade. The second one is an NP upgrade, as you can tell by the icons. It's useful to kind of check this screen every now and then, especially if you find yourself needing some quartz here and there, right? If I go to Salome here, I don't see any upgrades here. I can check down here for an interlude. There are none right now, right? On the other hand, if I were to check on Medusa, I would see the NP upgrade here. And then when I go down here, there's actually multiple things available. So as you can see, 2 St. Quartz, 2 St. Quartz, 1 there as well. I mentioned earlier on the clipboard about getting a certain number of extra missions done, right? So these are your weekly missions right here. Sometimes they're very easy to accomplish. Sometimes they are extremely convoluted. If we're on a dead week, they're usually pretty convoluted, right? You'll have an extra tab here. This will tell you that if you complete Fuyuki, you get 2 quartz. 10 quartz. If you complete section 3, you'll get 2. If you do 10 rank up quests, every 10 rank up quests up to a certain number, you'll get 10 Saint quartz. If you complete 10 interludes up to, I think, a maximum number in the game, you'll have 10 as well. If you complete 10 free quests, every 10 free quests, you'll get 10 Saint quartz here, in addition, like as a bonus. So there's a lot of quartz. I could not even begin to count this up if I wanted to. A lot of quartz to be earned just from playing the game. So that is interludes and rank ups, all part of your Chaldea Gate option here. To go to your next story node, you guessed it, you'll go to next right here. Down on the bottom is something called main interlude. If you click on this, they're going to be grayed out. You'll have multiple of these over time, but these are past events that the developers considered important enough to want people to be able to replay them at any time, potentially get the servant. There is some rare prism costs associated with some of these and their servants, but primarily it's about being able to play through the main story again. You do get the materials that drop from those main story nodes, but you cannot farm the event. Once you complete it, you can't like go back into it and do all the free quests, right? So I mentioned free quests. If we go back into Fuyuki, kind of look around a little bit here, you'll see these numbers that I talked about. This costs 3 AP. It has 3 arrows, right? So if I want to do this 3 times, I will get the Saint quartz from doing it on the 3rd time, right? Then I get to the infinity symbol here. The infinity symbol means that I can farm it infinitely afterward if I want to, but I'm not going to get quartz from doing that, right? If I hit this after doing it the first time, it will tell me the enemies that I can encounter in there. It will tell me some of the drops unless I got all of the drops to appear. Once all of the drops appear, then these will be filled out, right? Free quests will appear for all of the major nodes that you complete in each story chapter, right? So let's talk about event shop. Now, you can't do anything with this event shop here, right? But when you are able to play the events, there's a couple of things that you really want to focus on, right? So obviously there's going to be EXP in there. There's going to be silver foes. There's going to be skill and ascension items. But for a young account, the most important thing in events and the shop is at the bottom. And it is the skill and ascension, the ascension items. I'm going to show you what that looks like. So let's say I want to ascend somebody, right? Not only do I need these materials here, I also need these statues, monuments, pieces, monuments, etc., right? Silver for the first 2, gold for the second 2. When you first start out, let's say I wanted to ascend a VK Braun because he's max level. You have none of these. You're not going to get these, right? Except for playing through the story and occasionally getting to do event shops. Well, the event shops are increasingly locked behind further and further story progress. So when you first start the game up, you're going to want to just grind story for as much as you can, right? So I think that ought to do it. I know this is long. I know it was pretty in-depth. I wanted to talk through as much as I could just to try and get you off on the right foot. There's a lot this game doesn't tell you. There's a lot this game could do a better job at telling you. But overall, it's a good game. Like, it just is. I love it. There's a reason that people who have been playing this for years have been playing this for years. Once you get into the good parts of the story and start to really, like, learn the intricacies of not only characters, but, like, the interpersonal relationships that go along with them, it really is just good. It's just good storytelling. So I do recommend this game. Obviously, I wouldn't have done this long video about it. I appreciate you watching. Feel free to bookmark this, kind of scroll through it, whatever. But more importantly, feel free to reach out and ask questions if you have them. You can hop in my Discord, ask questions there. We have an FGO questions and help channel specifically for either newer players or even established players who have questions about things. There's no such thing as a dumb question. Ask. No one's gonna like talk down on you in my server. If they do, I'll just fuck them up like it's not a big deal. So yeah, if you have more questions, please do reach out. I do hope to see you over at twitch.tv/Sharkquado. Hang out there during our streams, 9 p.m. Eastern Time, Monday through Friday. Sometimes bonus stream on the weekends. Otherwise, I really hope you enjoy it. I hope you have fun. Try not to get caught up in the gacha aspect. That's not what it's about. That's just how it keeps itself going. That's how it keeps the lights on, the servers up and running. But try not to get too caught up in the gacha aspect. Try to let yourself enjoy some of the tertiary aspects of the game outside of that. So once again, thank you for watching. I really hope this was helpful. Let me know in the comments below if it was helpful, if it was not helpful about something, if you wish that you had seen something else in there, etc., etc. Long story short, thank you so much for watching. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you on the next one.